share some information with you. I have some slides that I would like to share with you, and then we'll have some time to engage in some conversation, welcoming you questions that you may have and any sort of feedback that you may have. You'll notice that the setup is a little bit different than maybe you would be used to. This is a community meeting. This is a community meeting regarding 2 pre-applications that are now posted online. This is not an official Board of Supervisors meeting. This is an opportunity, again, for conversation and sharing information, but we won't have any timers tonight. We won't have any 3-minute limits. We all do need to certainly work together so we have all of our voices heard and shared tonight. Oftentimes we get questions in these settings about the slides that I'll be sharing with you, and so those slides are here. They are also posted online on our dedicated project website. And so you can certainly take out your camera, follow along if you want to, or you can print them out whenever you have an opportunity later. So do appreciate your time. Thank you for being here with us this evening. This is not the one and only time that we'll have a conversation about these proposed ordinances. There will be more opportunities. Tonight is really the first opportunity on a new process. So we'll get that kicked off and started here this evening. So again, why are we here? And so ultimately, as we know, there are a whole lot of conversations that are taking place in our community. A lot of things that are taking place not only in the eastern end of Goochland, but in the western end of Goochland. There are a lot of important topics that are being talked about at kitchen tables, living room tables, back porches, and in a multitude of settings. But tonight we want to talk a little bit about what's on the screen and some questions that ultimately many of you have been asking and been concerned about where could data centers go now and in the future. We are also hearing certainly a lot of conversations about the rules currently associated with data centers. And as we know, this is a conversation not only in our community, but this is a conversation that's happening statewide and nationally as well. One of the things that we're going to discuss tonight also is recent General Assembly action, which imposes some additional conditions related to a lot of things that we'll get into later this evening that are important and on the minds of many here tonight, I'm sure, as well. And ultimately, where may future development, including data centers, potentially happen now and in the future? So on August the 13th, letters were placed in the mail to all Goochland County residents. I'm hoping that many of you got those. Hopefully all of you got those letters. But as noted in that letter, the Board of Supervisors is considering proposed amendments really related to 2 major goals. And so the first goal would ultimately be a prohibition of data centers outside of the technology overlay district. And then the second major goal is an opportunity to align the current TOD ordinance with the new state law on high energy use facilities, as well as an opportunity to include clarifying changes and revisions to the current technology overlay district, and an opportunity to readopt the TOD through a second public process. That's why we're here today, to kick off that second public process. One of the things that I skipped over that I think is important for tonight is we're here really to provide some focus on the topics associated with the ordinance amendments. As we know, the TOD Technology Park is an important conversation in our community. I certainly don't want to downplay the importance of that at all, because many of you here have shared your perspectives on that. And so that's going through another public process, and that's going through the system. But I want to focus us tonight on the proposed ordinances, because that's the focus of tonight. So hopefully we can stay focused on that and then address the TOD Technology Park in separate meetings that will be done publicly. So I want to talk a little bit tonight about what our community's been telling us, some background that I think is really important, because in our room tonight we have people with a variety of different perspectives, some who have lived in Goochland for many years, others maybe for not as long. And so I think it's important to frame kind of some of the background and some of the history as well. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of what's being proposed. And then we'll transition in talking about how this group and others can continue to be engaged in the work as the process ultimately evolves. So again, as I shared, we're here to talk about the ordinances. The Tuckahoe Technology Park is an important topic. We have a website that you can go to, opportunities to share feedback, but want to stay focused really tonight on the proposed ordinances. Lots of emails have been received. Many phone calls have been had. I've had the pleasure of sitting on many back porches and attending sessions in people's living rooms, and I'm thankful that they've invited me and board members into our homes. Your emails have certainly made a difference, and the phone calls that we've had, I think, have been really constructive conversations together. But there are resonating themes that are coming through in many of those conversations. And so this list is not all-inclusive, and there are as many details associated with underneath each one of these buckets, but these are some of the major buckets of information that we're receiving as we're reading your correspondence and having conversations. And one of the most prevailing themes is residential compatibility. We're hearing concerns about quality of life for nearby neighbors, those individuals who could be close to any sort of future development. That certainly is coming through loud and clear in the conversations that we're having and the emails that we're reading. We've heard from our community about a need for use standards. So that's something that's been prevailing in some conversations. What protections do nearby residents have, and where would any sort of future development be sited? That's coming through in the dialogue, as well as process. What is the process? How does all this progress and move forward? Concerns about transparency and how to access information. We've also heard many concerns about environmental factors, air, water, infrastructure, and a variety of things that we could lump under the bucket of environmental factors. We're also hearing about economic and fiscal concerns, and then ultimately a theme related to an impact on the trust in county government and the relationship that we have in service to our community. So many resonating themes there. Lots of details, certainly, but they're the biggest buckets that we are hearing about. So ultimately, how is the county responding to the voices and concerns that we are hearing from you? And one of those things tonight is an opportunity, based on the feedback that we're hearing, to provide a clear geographic line. And ultimately, should any proposed ordinance go through, it would prohibit data centers outside of the technology overlay district. Again, one of those goals referenced in the letter, one of the goals referenced in the pre-application. And so that is one of the things that potentially could happen in response to feedback. The second goal, again, is providing stronger protections required by state law and an additional public process. And so, as I stated, there is state law related to facilities that are drawing 100 megawatts or more. They must complete a state-required site assessment, and ultimately all that's shared with the county as the county is making decisions in the future. And then again, a second process, an opportunity to readopt the technology overlay district, including this meeting and many other future meetings that will take place on this topic. I want to spend some time on this slide because I think it's really important. Goochland County is going to celebrate its 300th birthday next year. 300 years Goochland County has been in existence. And for the past 50 of those 300 years, there's been conversations about economic development, economic growth, where things may take place in our community, where things may not take place in our community. And as you can see on this slide, a lot of that dates back to 1975, where there were initial conversations about a planned service area for Goochland County. And then you fast forward to 1987, when in a public meeting, the county rezoned West Creek Business Park, including 3,500 acres, zoning that to industrial, creating that business park. And then some important decisions were made in 2002 when the Tuckahoe Creek Service District formed, and the intent of that was to bring water and sewer service to the east end, ultimately spurring economic growth in our community. And as we know, we are fortunate to have many different corporate headquarters here in our backyard, including Capital One, CarMax, Farm Bureau, and Performance Food Group. Another important benchmark along the way was a public decision by a previous Board of Supervisors to add data centers as a by right use in M1 and M2. 1 year later, a 20-year comprehensive plan was adopted, designating the east end of our community as the economic driver for the county. And then in 2024, 2 years ago, there was a joint work session by both the Economic Development Authority and the Goochland County Board of Supervisors with the intent of spurring economic development in our community. And that brings us to why we're here tonight, based on a 4-1 vote that was made publicly on November the 6th, and then ultimately some legislation that went into effect on July 1st. So again, many years of conversations in our community that were had in public related to where economic development is going to go in Goochland County and decisions that have been made along the way. So that brings us to November the 6th, 2025, and there were 2 votes that night. One was on the technology zone. We're not here to talk about the technology zone tonight. The other vote was a 4-1 vote where the Board of Supervisors approved really 4 actions in that one vote. And one of those actions was to create the Technology Overlay District and design standards to provide or increase protections for nearby properties, to amend the comprehensive plan acknowledging the location of the TOD, to amend the parking ordinance to update standards for parking for data centers, and to amend some definitions in a certain section about the Technology Overlay District. So that was the 4 actions that were really within that one vote. It's important to note, and although many in this room and probably others feel that the county could have gone farther, there are some and many believe that maybe some of the standards and development ideals that are included in the TOD should have gone farther. But at the end of the day, there were many things that were included in the Technology Overlay District ordinance that provided additional protections for nearby residents that was not there prior. And so this list on the screen is not exhaustive, but some of the major components of that were distances from homes, setbacks. There was a lot of conversation about noise at that time, and so there were standards that were set related to DBA and DBC. A lot of the feedback over the course of the past several months related to generator testing, and then ultimately vegetation and having vegetative buffers between nearby homeowners and any sort of data centers. So those protections were not there prior to November 6th, but are one of the things that will be considered should we move forward here in the future. So let's dig in and talk about what is currently being proposed, proposed being a key word, proposed at this point in time. And so again, major goals here, the first one being that there would be an ordinance that would prohibit data centers outside of the Technology Overlay District. Another goal that would update the Technology Overlay District based on General Assembly action that would include a site assessment where the county would require a review of several things, including agricultural land, parks, historic sites, and a variety of other things that were referenced in a variety of different legislation that came out of the most recent General Assembly session. The third goal was an opportunity to readopt again through a second public process, and again, why we're here this evening. We will not talk about specific language tonight. So we don't have a slide that says, here is what's going to be recommended. That's why we're going to go through the process, because the conversations that we can have can further strengthen what we have already. It provides an opportunity there, but we're not going to present any sort of language that we have. That's just not where we are right now. We haven't developed it, and so we want to certainly go through the process and get your feedback, and tonight's an opportunity for that. So goal 1, the Technology Overlay District would be the place where data centers, if they ever come to Goochland, is where they would arrive. The goal would be that no data centers outside of the Technology Overlay District, and they would be restricted only to the TOD. The red star is where the red dot is where we are at this point in time. And of course, for those who may or may not know where the TOD is, the TOD is referenced there in green, which if you think about Goochland's entire land geography, is 2.4% of Goochland's total land area. So data centers are currently able to locate by right in one area of the technology overlay district. That is the area that is in green. So currently there is a by right usage where any sort of data center development must comply with the current standards of the technology overlay district. That area in green is 1.9% of Goochland's land area. The second area where data centers could potentially go would be the area noted here in yellow, which is 0.5% of the land mass, and that is a conditional use permit. And so I want to talk just for a moment about what a conditional use permit is. Many of you may know, but there may be folks in the room tonight who don't know. Conditional use permit gives the Board of Supervisors ultimate authority on any sort of conditions that would be imposed on a potential land developer. And so at the end of the day, the Board of Supervisors are in the driver's seat regarding if you were to choose, if you want to develop in Goochland County and you want to develop a data center in Goochland County, it would be done under these conditions. If you don't like the conditions, then don't develop in Goochland County. So it does put the community and the board as your representatives in the driver's seat to be able to impose those conditions. So I think it's important that there's, everybody who may not have experience with the CUP kind of understands what a CUP is. And at the end of the day, the Board of Supers can deny an application too. So they have some choice along the way. Approve, deny, impose conditions. And then based on the goals that have been addressed in the, we're going to have an opportunity to talk. Please be patient. We're going to have a chance to have some conversation. So this graph shows, based on the first goal, ultimately where data centers would be prohibited should that proceed. All right, so questions about why the East End? And I shared some perspective based on 50 years of history. So 50 years of history in this community have focused commercial development in the eastern end of our community. In addition to that, it's where there's been purposeful investment in infrastructure by the county with water and sewer. There currently is a plan for additional electricity to be delivered to West Creek Business Park. And so the Eastern Corridor also has strong fiber, and as we know, is in close proximity to Interstate 64, 288, 295. So there is a strong road network in the eastern end of our community. The second goal would be to update the current technology overlay district based on the General Assembly action that I was describing earlier tonight. So there's a variety of things that came out of the General Assembly. Many of those highlights are shown on this screen here for you, and you have the code citations. But these state laws would go on top of the current technology overlay district and sit on top of what is currently being protected for our residents who live nearby. And you can see that that relates to noise, air quality, ground and surface water, ag and forest land, as well as parks and historic sites. So every year, as you can imagine, when the General Assembly makes decisions, we as a local government have to update our ordinances so that our ordinances are in line with the state code. We're not the only community that will have to do that. That will happen across the Commonwealth. But when the General Assembly takes action, we need to make sure that we update our ordinances as a result. So goal number 3 is a second public process, which we are again starting here this evening. And process is an important word. This is a process. And so we have this community meeting tonight. We are scheduling tentatively a second community meeting in October. So our hope is that we can work together between now and October to get perspective and your recommendations potentially on some language to be considered. If we're able to do that, we could share that with the community in October. Should we follow on this trajectory, tentatively there could be a public comment section of the Planning Commission's agenda where they would make a recommendation to the board. And then if this stays on this current pathway, it would be January where the Board of Supervisors ultimately would be making a final decision. They are the ones who make the final decision. Again, they could approve, they could deny, they could adjust. Ultimately, that is their decision. So there are multiple opportunities to be engaged in this work. This is not the only time where we're going to convene and have this conversation. Multiple opportunities for you to get your voice on the record, share your perspective, and so wanted to outline the process as we go along. So again, you do have an opportunity to be engaged, and we certainly welcome that. We are here tonight on August the 27th and then we're slating for another community meeting in October, and work that will take place in the intervening time frame, November Planning Commission recommendation, in January opportunity for the board to consider a final vote on this proposed ordinance. So again, lots of ways to be engaged. We do have a dedicated project website. We have an opportunity for you to send questions directly to a dedicated email address that is monitored, and we're responding through those questions that we receive. You have an opportunity to send your thoughts to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. And so ultimately, continue to be engaged, share perspective, because it's important that we're part of the process. Again, there are more topics in Goochland County than this one. This is certainly important. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But we encourage you to sign up and get newsletters and more information about everything else that is happening in Goochland County too. This is our community. And so please be engaged in opportunities to learn more about Parks and Recreation, the assessor's office, law enforcement, a variety of things. So that can come directly to your email inbox. And of course, we have opportunities to be engaged in social media. So, dedicated project website. If you don't know what that is, you can take a picture of that. It'll take you right to it. Or you could Google Goochland County Ordinance Update. It'll take you right there. That's where these slides from tonight will be posted. You can view them later at your convenience. And then again, an opportunity to stay up to date and current with the next steps as they come along. So, want to transition to the next part of our meeting tonight. And this is an opportunity for me to maybe answer the questions that you may have, provide clarity on anything that maybe you're curious about. I know that many of you have strong thoughts on this. I just ask that we can engage in cordial conversation together. I know these are important issues, and I don't ever want to downplay that. So I respect your perspectives and certainly value that. I just ask that tonight, I am one of your neighbors, that we can engage in conversation as neighbors. I plan to be here, as late as 9 o'clock tonight, if need be, to make sure that we can engage in conversation, answer the questions that you may have. This is not a 3-minute reserved speech, no lights, but as you can see, we do have a large audience, and we need to respect everybody's time. So we ask that you're just cordial to your neighbors and respect others who may want to speak. We do have microphones in 2 different sections here. 3 or 4 people in line probably is appropriate. Longer than that, it becomes a little unwieldy. So welcome you to come and sit up front if you want to, or come to the microphone as you have any questions or want to provide comments. So who would like to be first tonight?
It's a little person. You have to do that.
Got it?
Hi.
Hi.
Do you need who I am?
Don't need your name. You're welcome to share if you want.
Okay. I've lived here for over 50 years in the eastern end of the county where there was never anybody, and now there's a lot of people. Lots of people have moved in to the eastern end of the county, and I think it's very interesting, the letter that was sent out promising everybody in the western end. It was almost like trying to divide us from east to west.
Yeah.
And I do think by that applause, we understand that. Mm-hmm. My question is, I do not understand whether you go west, east, south, wherever you go, why, since nobody wants it, you would, even if it's by right, put data centers in neighborhoods with over 55 people, huge group of people that have contributed a lot of taxes and money and support because they thought this was their county. Now, I've always lived here, and I don't live in one of those communities, but it truly concerns me as an older person living here. Why would anybody want to do this to the county?
Yeah.
Finish.
Thank you. Let's jump back and forth. Mr. Swaroff. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Swaroff.
Why would anyone want to do that? You're not answering her question.
Go ahead, please. Her question was, why would there be data centers next to 55 and older communities, right? So at this time, there may be data centers that could locate within the technology overlay district, which is included in by right, which is in the green, which is shared. And so prior to the creation of the technology overlay district, there could have been data centers located there, and the standards now are in addition to what was there prior to November the 6th. Those landowners could have put a data center there then. They can put it there now. That is their choice, as it has been zoned that way since 2014. So the questions related, this will not work, you all, if we don't have a conversation. So the conditional use permit that goes in the 900 acres, which is southwest near Richmond Country Club, there may not ever be a data center there. There may not. Ultimately, that would be a decision made by the Board of Supervisors if there was ever an application that was made. And so ultimately, we can't say that this is going to happen or not going to happen. That's the process that we're going through now. Mr. Schwarrock.
Hi, my name is Steve Schwarrock, and first of all, thank you for this opportunity.
You're welcome.
And recognize that you're a facilitator. You're not a decision maker in this regard in terms of the votes.
Thank you.
So just, you know, a little bit of gentle handling there. The board intends to keep the data centers in the TOD. We've already established that. The previous board's intentions were that M1 uses that, quote, do not in any way detract from the residential desirability. We've heard that probably 2 or 3 dozen times.
Right.
But the current board ignored the previous intentions, so today's intentions will be flushed down the toilet the minute they leave office. The power lines down 288 have not been built yet, but the planned tract data center already wants triple what that's going to provide. And by the way, that would be more than twice the size of the largest data center in the state of Virginia, the data center capital of the world. Access to municipal water is not needed. Tract bragged about how the closed loop cooling system that uses 95% less water. These things can go anywhere. The amped up power lines that will supply Goochland's east-west data center alley along I-64 and the data center alley from Louisa south through Oilville to the river. Maybe gas-powered generation on the lines from Tuckahoe Creek Parkway diagonally up through Oilville. And for what? The state's own JLARC report tells us, quote, most of the economic benefits derive from the construction phase rather than the data center's ongoing operations. And why is that? 75% of the cost of a data center are the foreign manufactured servers. Those servers and the coolers outside are all tax exempt. This isn't preserving rural Goochland. This is literally maximum damage zoning. This is literally taking a pin and picking the worst possible place. One other last thought. When some anonymous LLC abandons the obsolete data center, what are they going to say down at the convenience center? When trucks come through the gate with 450,000 obsolete servers. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Schwarrock.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Steve Usley, and I live at 9315 Citrine Run in Mosaic. Before I start off with what I had planned, a question I have. If the Planning Commission decides to reject any of these data centers, can the Board of Supervisors override their decision?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. So many of you have been through the process, and other folks in the room tonight may not have been. It's a great question. The Planning Commission goes through a whole public process, and they make a recommendation. And then ultimately, the final authority rests in the hands of the Board of Supervisors, who would make a final decision. They could accept the Planning Commission recommendation, they could overturn the recommendation, they could change the recommendation. It is a recommendation.
Thank you. Let me, if I can.
Sure.
I mentioned Steve Usley on Citrine Run. My wife, Diane, and I moved to Mosaic in November of 2022. We left a small town of under 5,000 people in northern New England with a main street and one general store. The store's motto happened to be, "If we don't have it, you don't need it." In moving to Virginia, our focus, beyond proximity to our grandchildren, was trying to find that sense of community we found in our prior life. What this looked like was having people come together to help a neighbor in need, and also finding ways to ensure that our senior citizens always knew that fellow residents valued their presence and contribution to town life. And it meant a commitment to planned growth and development, always sensitive to the needs of all residents and to the existing surrounding natural environment in which they lived. Such sensitivity was one way we all helped honor our children and also the next generation of residents, offering them a sense of place. As an aside, most of our youngsters that lived there in a small town, we actually produced 11 Olympians and sent at least one athlete to almost every winter game since 1984. That's a town of under 5,000. I recognize that Goochland is not that town. We embrace Mosaic at West Creek for its sense of community. Goochland does currently have many of the same elements of community. I believe that communities only fail when residents feel unheard and just give up, thinking that their voices no longer count. For all of our sakes, let's not go there. I often think that about that general store's motto, and today in Goochland County would adjust it to say, if we don't have it, perhaps we really don't need it. And at the end of the day, shouldn't this really be all about what people want from their county and its representatives?
Thank you.
Before I start my comments, I'd like to ask any of the Board of Supervisors who have bothered to show up and the Planning Commission if they could stand so we can see who we're addressing our comments to. Are any of them here? Yes. If you're here, can you please stand? So
We have 3 Board of Supervisors here this evening.
Thank you.
Mr. Vaughters was not able to make it this evening. He had a professional commitment. He is watching the live stream.
All right, well, thank you. Good evening. My name is Ann Kent. I reside at 9707 Kaleidoscope Row in Mosaic, less than 2,000 feet from the proposed data centers. I would like to address the issue of trust. When you were elected to the Board of Supervisors, one of the core ethical commitments that each of you pledged is to put the public interest first. I fully respect that sometimes that means weighing economic development against the interests of some citizens. It can be a tough job, and I thank you for taking it on. Unfortunately, the process that has been taking place in regards to the TOD has violated this ethical commitment. Mosaic and Reader's Branch were approved by this board as 55-plus communities adjacent to West Creek Business Park. Our communities contained highly valued, sought-after properties. I love living in Goochland County, and I love living in Mosaic. When we made our decision to move here, we all saw Capital One. We knew Eli Lilly was coming. No one protested. Then, just as the final lots were sold, voila, the TOD is announced, and we were told that data centers would be surrounding us. Timing is everything. Nobody believes this wasn't in the works way before the announcement. Most of us think there was an agreement between you and H.H. Hunt and Eagle Construction to wait to announce the TOD until the communities were fully developed. We were deceived. You knew that people would not buy here if they knew about the data centers. Most residents have now expressed this exact sentiment. Your constituents are now in the process of suing you over the legal process used to create the TOD. And you are using our tax dollars to fight us. Another lack of ethics. We attended the dog and pony show put on by Tract in this building a short time ago. The representative was asked if she would move to or have her parents move to a community surrounded by data centers. She replied, "Yes, I would." Not a single person in that room believed her. Lots of promises were made in the presentation, most of which Tract will have zero responsibility to uphold. We were told they have no idea who will be actually building and running the data centers. How can you make promises when you have no knowledge of what is actually going to be built? Unless, of course, like the TOD, you already know, and it's not being disclosed. This is what happens when you deceive your constituents. You recently put forth a resolution that no data centers would be built outside of the TOD. Congratulations. You have just moved to insulate yourselves from any effects of these massive, concrete, resource hog emitters of noise, light, and environmental pollutants. You've left the rest of us to deal with the fallout. Yeah. That is very unethical. Inundated daily with conflicting articles about the effects of these large-scale data centers. How much of it is true? Nobody really knows. And that is precisely the point. There are so many unknowns. I worked in the IT field. We had computer rooms the size of this building when I started that couldn't do what 1/10 of what the watch on my arm does now. The technology surrounding AI and data centers is changing at lightning speed. We are in a highly speculative time regarding AI and the structures needed to support it. History tells us that whenever there is a major new innovation with the potential to revolutionize the way we live, there is a predictable cycle. There is a boom, a bust, and finally a leveling off. We are in the boom phase, billions being invested with an unpredictable outcome. The bust phase will come, producing winners and losers. Some will make a lot of money, and there will be many losers. The winners will manage and control the technology. But even the experts have no idea where all this will end up. We will be left with these behemoth concrete structures that will go by the wayside like the manufacturing sector in this country. Maybe or maybe not. We don't know. Yet, you are willing to bet the house, actually all of our homes, and not yours, on this investment. You've got dollar signs in your eyes with very little concrete known advantages. To use a poker analogy, you are going all in with our money when all you're holding is a pair of twos. This does not sound like a safe or wise investment to me. You have lost complete trust of the people you swore to represent. Please look at our faces. We have attended and spoken out at meeting after meeting until all hours of the night, but we do not feel like you are listening. You are gambling. You are gambling with the physical, financial, and emotional health of all of these people, something you have now moved to exclude yourselves from. Frankly, I don't know how you sleep at night. I hope this time you're truly listening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Christie?
Good evening. My name is Jane Christie, and I would also like to point out, as the lady said, like 7 out of 10 in a recent, or 70% of people in a recent Gallup poll said they do not want to live next to a data center. Why go through the motions of a second public hearing process with the stated objective of reaching the same conclusion, when the Board of Supervisors could take this opportunity to actually listen to the will of their constituents with genuinely open minds? Introducing new measures to prohibit data centers in the western end of the county gives the impression that the county is being divided and the deck stacked against the residents of districts 4 through 5. I truly hope that this board would aim to adopt M1, M2 zoning standards that will provide equal protection for all of the residents of this county. The public has repeatedly requested the removal of the 870-acre TOD West area from the Technology Overlay District. The entirety of the designated growth area in the county's comprehensive plan is not and never has been the appropriate place for the Technology Overlay District. The comprehensive plan states that the designated growth area is intended to promote a mix of higher density residential and high quality commercial development to serve the public. It is not suitable for industrial use. The 870 acres of TOD West is zoned agricultural residential. It's outside West Creek. It was added to the TOD partway through the public hearing process at only 3 months' notice at the request of a small group of landowners. 400 acres of this area is outside both the West Creek Business Park and the prime economic development area specified in Map 13 of the 2035 Comprehensive Plan, which is described as suitable for low-density residential and office use, no retail, and should never have formed part of the Technology Overlay District. The state has added reporting requirements for 100-megawatt facilities, which brings into question by right hyperscale data centers in West Creek and offers an opportunity to update Articles 18 and 19 of the ordinances to reflect our current reality. There is a strong argument that the type of low-impact data centers previously permitted by right in M1 districts in West Creek over a decade ago that would not in any way detract from residential desirability and could locate adjacent to residential uses are absolutely not the same as the industrial-scale behemoths we are dealing with today, with massive power and water requirements, hundreds of backup generators, and potentially gas peaking plants, nuclear power sources, and battery backup. They do not belong in neighborhoods. One solution might be to continue to allow single-company data centers up to 10 megawatts, no more than 10 megawatts per 100 acres by right in M1 districts, and up to 40 megawatts with a CUP in M1. Data centers of 50 to 100 plus megawatts could be defined as hyperscale in our ordinances, only permitted in M2 and never by right because July 126 Virginia law has introduced new reporting requirements for high energy use facilities, as you know.
Yep.
It would also be necessary to prevent cumulative placement of data centers, for example, by limiting the number of megawatts per 100 acres, and to have fixed limits on the water and sewage requirements for each of these facilities, in addition to reporting on noise, health, and environmental impacts. These are questions the county needs to ask to comply with state law to correctly locate these industrial uses and adequately plan utilities to mitigate the air and water pollution and environmental damage they may create, and to protect the health and safety of all of your residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Christie. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
These are tough acts to follow. My name is April Garnett, and I live in Rivergate, and which is in the near the TOD district, West Creek area. My husband and I also have a large piece of land out in western Goochland County. I found it very interesting because our mailing address is the Rivergate address, that we received a letter to our LLC, the land, the farm that's in western Goochland County, reassuring us that do not worry, we're going to stick all the data centers, plural, in and we got that letter addressed to our farm. We did not receive that letter to our home address addressed to us in Rivergate.
Hey, ma'am, what's your address so we can make sure we get it? I want to make
It's
sure
okay,
it's on
I
the...
have it.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I just found it very interesting that, like, if I were living in the western part of Goochland County and received that letter, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, phew. Of course, you didn't mention the fact that there's going to be a huge, like, the big power lines that are going to be needed that may cut across those parts of the county at some point to power up these data centers, but it was just more, I thought that's really interesting that I received the letter there, but not to me in Rivergate as a Rivergate owner. And that just felt a little bit duplicitous to me. It didn't feel like an accidental oversight. I would also say, I don't know you, I don't know what your position is, but I will tell you that my perception of you is that you are for these data centers and that you're not neutral on this issue. And it felt at the beginning with your presentation like you were really trying to sell us on this and not coming with just like, hey, we're here to like really hear. It feels like a formality, like we gotta check the box so we could say we did it, but we've already made up our minds. And have any of you, I would really like to know, have any of you, because I've only heard, you know, we all get our news different places, but I've heard stories like, if people in Loudoun County, have you talked to the people in Loudoun County? Have you talked to their board of supervisors? I mean, those people were like the guinea pigs of all this. And the residents are having terrible times, like, you can't exceed this decibel, but in the heat of the peak summer in July, I heard a report of this man saying he literally recorded it. They were well above the decibel limit, but because of EPA regulations or whatever else, they couldn't enforce it. So they were like, sorry, our hands are tied. So do you have ways to enforce these things that you're talking about on these data centers? Have any of you signed NDAs? Because we would ask, I don't think any of us would be comfortable with any of you signing NDAs, working with lawyers ahead of time. Just a small thing, and I don't want to get too off on the weeds, but like we had a thing in Rivergate where we came to the Planning Commission, we went to the Board of Supervisors. It was about a neighborhood development going in close to us, and they had done a traffic study in the height of the pandemic shutdown on River Road that they were basing this waiver of a left turn lane off River Road on. And we said, look, could you just repeat the traffic study before you make this decision? And we went on and went to meeting after meeting. I don't know if any of my neighbors are here, because I think we all just gave up on the process at that point, because one of the board members said, well, we've met with their lawyer for the developer. We've been meeting with them and they've given us all these assurances. And we all realized afterward, like, oh my, we didn't hire a lawyer. We didn't know we were supposed to do that. We thought we were genuinely coming to a community meeting where you're going to listen to our needs and our desires and make decisions based on that.
Yeah.
Almost didn't come. But it's just so important. Like, if you take our water, if you take our clean air, if you destroy our property, home values, because guess what? If we don't want to live there anymore, who do you think's going to buy it from us? People put their wealth in their homes, in their land, and it's terrifying to me. Like, I have a lot invested there, and if it would be, one, I don't want to have to move, but also what's the hurry? And and you're giving them tax breaks to come here, which is why they want to be here. So what is the revenue? Like, at some point in one of these future meetings, will you please tell us, what's the income to the county? What do you want to spend it on? And this may not be a popular decision, but I personally, because I'm going to pay one way or the other. I'm either going to pay in higher utility bills, I'm going to pay with no clean air, noise, no animals, no water, whatever, right? We're going to pay one way or the other. So I'd rather just pay more in taxes. Just raise my property taxes and get your revenue that way. Have you even talked about that? As in, if you need money, let's talk about ways to get money that don't involve bringing these people here. Because I think most people in the United States that are against these, that are being impacted by these data centers, feel like these are just these tech companies. They're nameless, faceless people who don't care at all about any of us. You all are supposed to. And we don't feel like you do. So you have a perception problem, even if you really do care about us, you might want to look at it, because integrity is doing the right thing when no one is looking.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, you asked a couple questions. If you want us to have we want to make sure we have your address so that you're mailing it every place. So, if
And very communicative to us. I just want to give him an applause. This gentleman back here in the bow tie, he has our backs, y'all. And if you reach out to him, he will give you all the information you need. It's not because it's his agenda. He genuinely gives the impression, and I feel it from him, that he cares about all of us. So I'm getting the information. Thank you, but
we want to make sure we have all the good information so we can get your mailing correct. So we have staff here.
I've got
You're
it.
welcome. So let me answer your question regarding enforcement. One of the things that was not referenced on the slide here tonight is what the General Assembly did related to enforcement through the Department of Environmental Quality. And so that was a law that enforces a variety of different things with a fine per day if data centers would not comply. So that is additional work that was done in Richmond that ultimately provides some additional authority for enforcement by the state agency. So that is helpful. I think that was 2031, I believe, that law goes into effect. And just for clarity purposes, the county is not recommending nor has approved any sort of tax rebates, so that's not related to any of the ordinance amendments that are being proposed. So tax rebates have not been part of any conversation with any data center developer. Arnie?
Thank you, Dr. Riley. I'm going to talk this evening, about the TOD reaffirmation, and I'm going to introduce Charlie of the TTP. And I want to apologize to Mr. Vodder, one of our supervisors. It's not aimed at... It was not meant to be derogatory to Mr. Vodder's. It's just a parody on a song. Mm-hmm. But good evening. My name is Arnie Rosenberg. I reside at 14003 Mosaic Nook in the Mosaic at West Creek subdivision. And I am president of the Mosaic at West Creek Homeowners Association. Mosaic at West Creek is a 55 and over housing for older people subdivision in District 5. As president of the Mosaic at West Creek, I speak on behalf of the Homeowners Association and the more than 1,000 residents who live directly beside TOD West, the people who will feel the consequences of this ordinance first, longest, and most intensely. Tonight I'm going to speak with clarity, and I'm going to speak with urgency because this moment demands both. Goochland Board of Supervisors is seeking to reaffirm the TOD ordinance as if nothing has changed in the past year since its passage. Goochland's Board of Supervisors is seeking to reaffirm that TOD even though everything has changed in this past year. The proposed Tuckahoe Technology Park has shown us exactly what TOD West allows, and it's bigger, it's louder, it's closer, and more disruptive than anything Goochland likely imagined when this ordinance was created. And Mosaic has chosen a very Mosaic way to make that point. Through a parody that our residents, just a bunch of old activist hippies, wrote, inspired by the Kingston Trio's Charlie of the MTA. We call it Charlie of the TTP. It begins, let me tell you the tale of Goochland County, where the cows once grazed and the breeze was free. But a Tech Park train rolled into the station and folks said, wait, how long is this ride gonna be? It's humorous, but the message is not. Because once a train, in this case the TOD ordinance, leaves the station, you don't get to redesign the tracks. And Goochland is being asked to get back on that train without addressing the consequences of the TOD that the Tuckahoe Technology Park proposal has already revealed. Let's be absolutely clear about those consequences. We are not talking about a modest office complex. We're talking about 12 hyperscale buildings, over 3 million square feet, and land measured in acres, 872 to be exact. That is a complex of almost unbelievable scale. It's an individual campus, it's an industrial campus about the size of the North Anna nuclear facility, which is 938 acres. We're not talking about occasional noise. We're talking about noise at 55 dBA and possibly, no, more likely greater than that never stops, not at night, not at weekends, not ever. Resulting in a sense that our peaceful, active adult community has shifted from residential to industrial in feel. We're not talking about short-term inconvenience from construction impacts. We're talking about construction impacts that will last more than 7 years and probably longer. We're not talking about minor infrastructure adjustments. We're talking about power, 900 megawatts of constant power at build-out. Do you all realize that's 20 times the annual power consumption of all of Goochland County? And the entire capacity of one of North Anna's nuclear reactors. And the water demands could reshape Goochland's TCSD systems and the cost to its users for decades. The county may say the TOD ordinance and the TTT Cup are separate processes, and they are. But the TTP proposal has exposed the ordinance's weaknesses in a way no theoretical discussion ever could before its passage. We now know what TOD West permits, and it's far more intense, far more invasive, and far more destructive to our community's fabric than what Goochland ever likely envisioned, or hopefully envisioned. What the comprehensive plan dreamed of. What the TOD did was effectively allow landowners the opportunity to upzone their A2 rural, A3 low-density residential property to large-scale, no, not large-scale, hyperscale industrial M1, M2 land use without providing the protections, the resulting impacts that that type of incompatible land use on adjacencies natural causes. It didn't go through a rezoning. It's using the overlay to make that change. This is not about opposing data centers. Mosaic supports responsible development, but responsible development requires responsible placement. It requires responsible siting, buffering, setbacks, noise mitigations, responsible consideration of the communities that must exist beside these industrial facilities for the next half century. The TOD ordinance was written before Goochland had ever seen a real data center complex proposal. The world, at least our world, has changed in this past year. The industry has changed in this past year. The scale of what will be has changed in this past year, and our understanding of the impacts have changed along with them. That being said, it makes sense that policy must change with it, and now we have the opportunity to adjust and change that policy. So let me say with complete clarity, reaffirmation cannot and should not be a rubber stamp. Reaffirmation cannot and should not be just a procedural formality. Reaffirmation cannot be just business as usual. Reaffirmation must be a full, honest, unflinching re-examination of TOD West and all of the requirements for the TOD. First and foremost, this re-examination must eliminate TOD West from the ordinance completely and as quickly as informally as it was added, and strengthen the mitigation requirements to provide acceptable land use compatibility standards for all residential adjacencies and the entire Goochland County. It must modernize setback requirements by introducing an intermediate land use, which is proper planning, or at the very least, increasing setbacks to a minimum of a quarter mile, 2,000 feet, with 500-foot vegetative buffers. It must reduce sound impacts on adjacent residential properties wherever they are to a maximum of 45 dBA and 55 dBc day-night under any and all operating conditions, testing and emergencies included. It must account for environmental and health impacts and the quality of life impacts on adjacent communities. And most importantly, it must incorporate the lessons, the warnings revealed by the TTP proposal about governance and enforcement of these requirements. It must reflect today's realities, not the theoretical assumptions from even last year. That brings me to the final verse of Charlie of the TTP, which says it plainly. So Mosaic raises its voices together, not in anger, just in clarity. Let's make sure this train has a safe direction before Goochland boards it permanently. That is our message. That is our responsibility. That will be our collective legacy. And that is the decision that will be before the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors in the coming months. Before Goochland gets back on that train, we must know exactly where that train is going. Let me add one final thought as we look ahead. Before Goochland recommits to TOD West, we must ensure that our policies match the realities of modern hyperscale development. This is not a moment for inertia. It is a moment for stewardship. The decisions made now will define the character of Districts 4 and 5 and all of Goochland County for generations. The Mosaic residents did not move to Mosaic to live beside an industrial complex. They came for quiet, for safety, for community, and the promise of a peaceful retirement. That promise is now in your hands, the hands of the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Protecting it does not mean stopping progress. It means shaping progress responsibly. The TOD must reflect the lived reality of the people who will feel its impact every hour, every minute, every second of every day. Reaffirmation must not simply acknowledge the lessons of the past year. It must operationalize them. Clear, reduced noise limits, realistic setbacks and bufferings, enforceable conditions, transparent oversight, and elimination of TOD West from the ordinance. These are not obstacles to development. They are foundations of compatibility. If Goochland chooses to reaffirm the TOD West, it must do so with standards that protect adjacent neighborhoods from the industrial scale impacts which they will bring. Anything less would be a failure of government and governance. I will close by leaving you this statement. We all here understand growth is inevitable. but harm is not. The difference, well, the difference is policy, and that will be your choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnie.
Thank you, Arnie. My name's Kyle Lindenmuth. I live in the Mosaic community. Live directly next to TOD West, completely border right there. So I'd like to make comments on I'm in the power industry. I don't work for Dominion. I would like to educate my neighbors as much as the Board of Supervisors and anybody who's part of the staff. This summer, since we made comment about DEQ, this summer we had the first time where the data centers in Northern Virginia exceeded the power that PJM had on hand. DEQ waived the emissions requirements and allowed, and in fact, put an emergency statement out that said, please run your backup generators because we're in an electricity emergency. So they waived, so the idea that DEQ will protect us in a situation like that in the future is inherently false. They are going to do, because the National Energy said, no, you need to run them for our grid. So that's an important data point. And this was the first summer that happened in the PJM community. It's going to happen more.
Yeah, good information.
2014, I cannot imagine that our Board of Supervisors at the time envisioned hyperscale data centers. And we're in a totally different realm right now. I do really want to say thank you to any of the commission who was a part of writing the letter back to TRACT for the completeness letter for their application. Yeah.
Thank you. They worked hard on that.
They did a really good job of writing 21 things that need to be addressed in that application, and then I guess it was about 13 items that they ought to address that were really important. And I really appreciate that they did a really good job of addressing, I think, what a lot of came out of the TRACT proposal, or not proposal time, but the TRACT time here with us that a lot of us attended. And I thought they did a really good job of addressing a number of those issues that we're talking about here tonight. The other item that I'd like to bring up, so thank you for that, is there are two cases in the State Corporation Commission which some people may be aware of. One is with Dominion, and it has to do with who's paying for electricity, who's paying for the data center. It's case PUR 2026-00011. And in that, TRACT is, which is TOD West. And I will just say, I hope you'll just turn down TOD West. We all hope you'll turn that down. So TRACT is a litigant in that. And so they're fully aware. And I hope that the staff will be in consideration of, and I know we've talked about the tax implications of data centers. Not tonight, but in previous meetings. The electrification and what it's going to take to electrify these, TRACT came in and tried to say they're going to have electricity in 7 years. This PUR case was saying that they're 15 years out from even considering TRACT. So TRACT is the company, Valco. They're the ones that are doing the application for TOD West. So right now, there's such an inundation of data centers in the Dominion system that they have a backlog that is currently 15 years long. PUR 00011 is dealing with that. TRACT knows that it's going to be years, or likely years, that they can even get electricity. And so anything that they said, where they said Goochland County is going to get tax revenue in the next 7 years, except for any development that's done, they will not be operating for years into the future. So I highly recommend that they have what is called an ELOA, which is an engineering letter of authorization, in which they will be told approximately how many years in the future they will be getting electricity. It might be 10, it might be 15. In the case, it is argued that it might be 25 years in the future. So any tax revenue we're thinking about, or sorry, you're thinking about getting for us, maybe years and years and years from now before they can get electricity. The second case that I found today, which most of us are aware of, is PUR 2026-00009. That's the one that allows Eli Lilly to have their substation and the 230 kV line. That's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And that's a state issue. The state is going to make that happen. Nobody's arguing, I don't think, with the Eli Lilly facility, and we've commented about that many times. And there's a reason for it. We think that's responsible growth, and data centers are not. The troubling thing that's in there in the testimony is that it states very specifically, Mr. Lamido summarized the status of 3 potential data center developments along the project routes. A 200 megawatt facility that has an engineering ELOA, hasn't been signed yet, a 1,200 megawatt data center, and a 900 megawatt facility. So Dominion's aware of all 3 of these. We're only aware of one, and I believe you made mention of a second one this evening at the very start. But when I saw that, another 1,200 megawatts in probably, I guess, somewhere within the TOD area, that was pretty disturbing to me. Again, there's no promise of electricity coming for years into the future. And I do hope that you will just take TOD West completely out of everything that's going to happen in this county.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for recognizing the work of our planning team, who really worked hard on evaluating the completeness of that application. And I will share that there was a lot of things that were included in that response to the applicant that were directly informed by really constructive feedback that we got from our community. And I had a great conversation with some residents in their living room that really helped us provide a different perspective on that. And so that constructive feedback matters and was incorporated in that. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay. Ms. Payne?
Hello, I'm Christy Payne. I live in District 1 at 46303 Chop Road, Gum Spring, Virginia. I have 3 to 4 questions this evening. Some of the questions I have already been touched on, so you may hear a repeat, but I have a little bit more that I want to ask about it. My first question, and I would like the questions to be answered, please. Okay, so this is my first question. Are there currently any active non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, between Goochland County and any data center developers, data center operators, their affiliates, or representatives that apply to county officials, county leadership, staff, or appointed members of the county boards, commissions, or committees? That's my first question that I would like answered, please. Do you want me to go through all of them and then?
The answer to that is yes.
Okay, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. So, TRAC stood on stage on July 23rd, and I believe said there wasn't any NDAs with county officials that evening. I've been concerned about Exhibit 29, just like this gentleman spoke about in the SEC hearing, the 2,900 megawatt data center that's going to back up to Reader's Branch. I guess you can't tell me if that's where the NDA is. I guess you can't say the location. I guess you can't tell me if it's in Western Goochland. You can't tell me where it is, can you?
That's one of the challenges of the conversation that we're having. And you know, an NDA is an NDA, and not, you know, many in the room, I'm sure, have experienced that, and there maybe are their own personal or professional lives. And so I don't want to put the county in a vulnerable position by releasing something that could ultimately put the county in a very tough situation. So I answered your first question honestly, but I can't provide any specific details, Ms. Payne.
Okay, let's let him. I'm gonna ask, and he's gonna answer. He's being honest. We're gonna.
Yeah.
I thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
So we all know that information, but you can't give us any more details on that. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next one. I saw this slide about 2014, and those Board of Supervisors and those planning commissioners from 2014 certainly have been on my mind for several weeks now. I know that the slide says that's when the data centers were added in for our county, and I've read the documents. I have the documents. I've looked at them, and I know that's when it was voted. When the Board of Supervisors unanimously voted in the March 2014 to make data centers by right use in M1 and M2, did they understand the scale of what data centers could eventually become? I would love to just know or ask them, did they understand what they were voting for, that 12 years down the road, the citizens of Goochland would be under the threat of utility eminent domain in western Goochland to provide energy to data centers in Northern Virginia? And if they knew that, would they vote? Would they vote the same? I just wish we could go back in time, and I just wonder, could they possibly even understand where we are today and what they were really voting for? The staff report discusses a 119-acre certified data center location in West Creek, and even references a conceptual rendering for a 25-acre site. The ordinance defined a data center specifically contemplated generators, cooling facilities, and utility substations, but where in those documents was the discussion of hyperscale campuses? We did not know what hyperscale campuses were in 2014. We couldn't have possibly envisioned it. Covering hundreds of acres, hundreds of megawatts, electrical demand, multiple substations, or the massive high voltage transmission infrastructure that would be required to serve them. I know that's probably an answer you cannot answer. You were not there, you were not for the vote, but I wish we could ask them if they would change, if they could go back in time, would they've changed that vote? And the next thing I have for you, I know that I have this question. If Goochland changes the ordinance now to prohibit data centers in M1 and M2, and M1, M2 is throughout the whole county. Make sure you're looking on GIS to understand that it is throughout the whole county. It is not just in western Goochland. That's very important. So we're talking about M1, M2 throughout the whole county. And it limits them to the TOD areas. This is my question. What prevents future board from changing the ordinance again? If the TOD areas eventually fill up, which it's filling up quickly in the TOD, or economic development begins looking for additional land because we've got the TOD completely filled up, could M1, M2 properties, such as those in Oilville Industrial Park area, could they be reconsidered and the ordinance amended again? We know the rules can change because the board changed them in 2014 to specifically allow data centers by right in M1, M2. So what protection do residents outside the TOD areas actually have long-term beyond the policy and zoning ordinance adopted by the board sitting today?
Christy, that's a great question. And the fact of the matter is, any future board cannot commit to actions of a future board. And so the current work we're going through right now, we'll go through a process, and at the end of the day, there will be a motion and a second and any sort of vote that takes place to change what is currently in the ordinance. So any sort of future change to M1, M2 outside in the future would go through a similar public process, and ultimately a future board could change it with a motion and a second and a vote that's in the affirmative. So that has a possibility. It is.
Okay. When we're told that conditions and state regulations will protect Goochland residents, we need to understand what enforcement actually means. Data centers in Virginia have received environmental and air pollution penalties and continue to operate. I know that we've talked about that. That just got brought up earlier about the potential fines for the state of Virginia. But I want to say there are examples here in the state of Virginia where the data centers just paid the fine and kept on going. Cyrus 1 alone has multiple Virginia environmental enforcement penalties. And the Compass Data Center received a $68,000 air pollution penalty in 2025. A violation of fine do not necessarily mean that the data center shuts down, as Track said on July 23rd, but we know how that goes. DEQ stated the goal is generally to bring the facility back into compliance. So before Goochland approves a facility intended to operate for decades, I want to know when a condition is violated, what actual stops the activity? Who makes sure it doesn't happen again? So if we have the fines, they continue to pay the fines and keep on doing what they're doing, what's going to happen from there?
Yeah, I'd have to learn more about DEQ and what would happen in 2031 with those additional fines, but I can talk about the current process now.
Okay.
So between now and any time that law would become effective, whether it's a data center or someone who has a shed in the wrong place, or they have a bunch of junk cars in their backyard. So it would go through, or someone who's maybe disturbing the land and they shouldn't, they got a pond over here, and whatever. So we work to try to get resolution informally. There are letters that are sent, and there's coordination and cooperation, but at the end of the day, we would have to go to court, and the circuit court judge would have to say, you're going to stop work, you're going to shut down. Our ability is limited. We need the strength of the judicial system, who ultimately would say, no, stop, you're done. That is outside of the county's authority. But we would be a part of the process that would ultimately get that to the judge's desk.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, I want to circle back to them NDAs. Why? Why are they signing? Explain to us, why are they choosing to sign this? Why are they doing it? Explain that. Why? Yeah. What's the purpose of the NDAs, of the data center operators and developers, and keeping the information from us? Tell us why.
Yeah. So my experience in the past 14 months, I've learned a lot about how county government does business, and many of you in the room, I'm sure, have private backgrounds where you have been a part of transactions in business. And so there are many times when a business will come to us and say, hey, we're considering doing this in your community. There are conversations between that business and the private landowner. I mean, businesses, whether it's a data center or a mattress manufacturer, you know, they need to do their due diligence to determine whether or not it is viable in their business model. And sometimes those folks reach out to, not me, staff, our planners, our utility folks are engaging with these folks to help them determine whether or not this is something that they want to do in our community. They ask about water flow, or they ask about setbacks, or they ask about, you know, a variety of different things. And so as they're considering and doing their due diligence, we're providing that information to them, and they don't want that shared because the project may never, ever come to fruition. So it's largely to be able to protect that relationship as we're working with them to do their due diligence. So it's part of a business transaction, and many don't see county government as a business, but in many ways we are. And so it's very delicate, as we know, a very delicate subject, but that's how NDAs have been used in the past in the county.
All right, thank you for your time, Dr. Raley.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Dearden?
It's always a little concerning when the county administrator knows my name. And in all due honesty, I will say that I know the supervisors, many of them personally, and I've known past administrators very personally. I want to be very honest about this. And my wife has been on the Economic Development Authority in Goochland for the last 10 years. Never has she ever told me what has been inside an NDA, because otherwise I might blurt it out. My question really follows on a slightly different concept from the last lady about NDAs, and this is a very particular question which concerns me. Within the concept of NDAs, I want to be assured from you and possibly from supervisors and staff that no NDAs or contracts, perhaps I should use the term contracts, have been signed by the county, which puts the county on the hook for the tracks and other people spending millions of dollars starting to develop things where there is a TOD, which is now under legal review, and therefore, when it gets to the end of the whole process, they come back and say, well, we spent all this money, we're going to sue you, the county, because you signed us, you let us in, you gave us permission to do all this stuff, and then at the end of the day, 6 months down the road, you're saying no. And so suddenly the county is wringing its hands and going, well, we have to let them do it now because we signed an NDA with you guys, we got a contract with you guys to do this stuff. And so it's very specific, not going to take you much of your time. That's my question.
No, there's no contract or no financial commitment. I mean, at the end of the day, private parties can sue, and that's ultimately their choice, but there's no contract obligating the county to anything or any sort of financial contribution.
That's nice to hear in public. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So my name's Nathan. Actually, I consider myself fairly new to the county. I moved here in 2022. I'm playing catch up. I have a baby on the way, so house is a madhouse. But one thing I noticed, especially with the focus on the percentage of the county land use, is can you actually say the percentage of the TOD that would be like in the application by track? Like the actual percentage of the TOD that would be used if track went through?
Well, the total, we'll use rough numbers. If the total TOD is 2.4% of Goochland's overall land area, TOD West is 0.5%, so 0.5 out of 2.4 is the overall.
That's for the county, but what about the TOD?
So the overall TOD is 2.4% of overall land vast, so West is 0.5 of 2.4, so whatever that math is.
And track, their application currently would use how much of the TOD? Their proposals, sorry, their proposals.
Yeah, we're using rough numbers, but let's say approximately TOD West is 900 acres. I think Track's application is in the 850s and change, so it's largely the entire TOD West.
It's,
again, rough approximate numbers.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going off of rough numbers. Something that struck out to me is everything is constantly in flux. There's a lot of different things coming from different places of the country. And with a proposal that takes roughly about a fifth of the TOD, you're not really giving yourselves at all, like, let's say everything goes through and all of that, you're not giving yourselves even any time of frame to have lessons learned, especially because there's different things not being considered, such as including in the amendments that the data centers have to have a closed water system, which is out there as a capability of limitation, or that just even with in the amendment, at least from my understanding of a couple hundred barrier between residential areas, there's actually sites where they're doing sound recordings within a couple hundred feet of the facilities, and it's above, at least for what we're talking about fines, there doesn't really seem to be any sort of like lessons learned from other places, let alone in the country, but Virginia, especially with on the east side or in the east part of Virginia where water is being picked up in one location, dumped into another. It's like, it seems like there should be more things in the amendment from lessons learned of, one, give yourselves time to not just dump everything into one company, especially if they have other litigation, which I'm not privy to, but also other things to limit the impact of like, why is like closed water loops not even being discussed in the amendment? Why is like other different preventive measures not being considered, especially because right now there is so much like lessons learned.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback. I appreciate that. That's why we're here, ultimately, to determine where we go in the future and what the current TOD looks like in the future. So that's really good feedback.
All right, so at least from a recommendation standpoint, especially with having an application take up so much of the TOD, at least have some provision in the amendment of just limiting how much a single corporation can take. Yeah. Because we're talking about like, especially because I'm not actually going to be in the area like affected from this, but knowing in the future, especially with talking about a community that has been the name Mosaic Community, you're basically making an economic dead zone of a single company.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rowan Mickleborough, and I reside at 9175 Bellini Crescent in the Mosaic community. Firstly, a big thank you to the elected supervisors sitting here tonight who have responded to my various emails. It may be that they are AI generated, but I like to think that they are not, and you did actually read what we sent you. But if we have to be honest with ourselves, this meeting has less to do with all you actually listening and more to do with complying with county code requiring a hearing before submission to the Planning Commission in November. If history is anything to go by, nothing that the community says tonight will be heard, and what we ask for will be ignored. I have been to almost every hearing, all the way back to the big one back in November of last year. I have been witness to the process where hundreds of Goochland residents have either spoke or ceded time to others to speak on their behalf. I've heard the articulate, the impassioned speeches given by the county residents literally begging supervisors not to allow this to happen in our county and our homes and our way of lives to be desecrated by these data centers. And all that begging and all that pleading has achieved absolutely nothing. Nothing. It is almost as if our supervisors, in the face of all this pushback from the entire county, somehow believe or think they know better. It's as if they have divine guidance that the rest of us mere mortals know nothing about or cannot begin to understand. The whole process and how we got here beggars belief, but here we are. So now we sit once again in this huge auditorium, all dressed in red, to discuss these new zoning amendments. And if I may recall, I will read an excerpt from the letter we all received recently, and I quote, "In response to the feedback from our community, the Goochland County Board of Supervisors is proposing amendments that will clarify that data centers will only be allowed inside the Technology Overlay District, including West Creek Business Park. Data centers will be prohibited in other areas of the county." And this really gets down to the crux of it all, doesn't it? After all, we all know there has never been one person who has walked up here to this lectern, either here or at the Goochland buildings, in the last year who has said, yes, we would love to have a data center, we just don't want it in our district. That right there is BS. You know it, everyone in this meeting knows it. This wedge that you are so determined to hammer into place will be set in concrete and it will be a county divided. We will have those that have to live with this intolerable situation on a daily basis, and those on the other side of the barbed wire fence who benefit mightily from the county's newfound wealth. Finally, and let's not forget this, TOD West was never in the original TOD plan. That county brought it up in June, that was brought up to the county in June of 2025. But what followed was a flurry of NDAs and a county kowtowing to a few landowners determined to get rich and a development company determined to destroy our way of life. No discussions, no rationale, and no open debate. But now this, we the community who you ride roughshod over, we see through you all. I will close by challenging you all to prove me wrong. Prove to me that the hundreds dressed in red sitting behind me, that you truly have the moral fortitude to do what's right for everyone in this county and not just what's right for your political self-interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Okay. Hello, Barry Moore, and thank you for being here, Doctor. As we've talked for the last, 14 months, you should not have applied, or you're glad you applied for this job. Residents, I think, don't all understand your role. Two easy questions. Did you run for this position, or were you hired?
I am appointed by the Board of Supervisors.
And so who are your bosses?
I serve at the pleasure of 5 Board of Supervisors who hire me.
Period, end of story, like any other company. So I think residents need to understand that when they address you. So I appreciate all you've done. And we know you are going around the clock like the supervisors are. You know, Jonathan Lyle, somebody mentioned him. He is engaging, he listens, and he talks. We all know that. Being political or looking back at history, 4-1, he puts out a motion, nobody seconds it. I wish somebody would have just seconded it, voted 4-1, and moved on. But that started a snowball in the political arena and the trust with neighbors. I've made it clear, I am not looking for concessions. I don't care about setback, decibels. I don't want a data center today built, period, in this area. I don't think the state needs one more. And I think that's what we have to live with. that being said, you know, I think back, I realized tonight, and I think I'm right, Tom, this is where Becky's celebration of life was. Becky and Dennis Prophet was here. I think that's the last time I saw so many cars, was her celebration of life. And I didn't know where I was because I didn't know Goochland. Again, like I said last week at the Planning Commission, this was above my reason. I was never going to afford to live in this beautiful community, let alone Mosaic. As you know, the supervisors all know, we started out an easy path. It was called a petition, very nice, 900 signatures. You saw it, all the supervisors saw it. And every point, if you go back in them, have been mentioned now since November to every hearing we've had here, every town hall. So I'm going to get to a question in one moment, and you're not going to be able to answer it right now, but I hope we do. I hope the 5 supervisors can answer it for us coming up. We have got to a point that we have anybody that gets an elected official role, it is the greatest, you know, other than maybe a father or a husband, it's up there. When you get sworn into an office, you were elected, whether you ran unopposed or you put your hand up and you said, I am going to represent this, and this being your people. And it is so easy to make this decision. So when we think about running for class president or a supervisor or a governor or a president, we come talking to our friends and our supporters about how bad those guys were and how we're going to do it different. And I don't think that the 5 can right now, and not a blanket statement, but there's 5. And I think there's a couple that can talk about this intelligently and logically and give us answers. Why are we doing this other than economic and promises? One thing I learned, the Dillon rule, when I went to Sorensen, I had no clue. I'm from New Jersey. We don't have the Dillon rule. We're not a Commonwealth. I don't understand it until now I understand it. Everything gets decided on a local level. I believe, Delegate Navarre, I would appreciate, and I've trying to reach out to the General Assembly. I don't know how you change it, but these data centers that we're talking about today, not computer closets, they can't be decided at a local level. We're talking about air, water, quality of life, jobs that we have to go to, and medical health. Medical health should be the top of the list. So if the Dillon law can be not changed, but changed up a little bit to say the state has to know better because there's more players involved and there's all parts of our state. And I can see these data centers sneaking out Southwest Virginia, if they can get the power and the water, sneaking out and putting up mega centers because the Dillon law will allow this local government to say, this is what we want. But we never put it on a ballot. If we put it on a ballot, we would have been done with this November 5th, not November 6th. So the question, and with all sincerity, Mr. Winfrey, Mr. Lau, Mr. Spoonhour, and I'm not sure who else was here, can we get to a point on a stage and having a vote that we can tell everybody right now, not tonight, but right now, before we do all these other hearings and wear more red shirts, the red shirt guy is doing really well. I didn't buy one of them, and I'm sorry, but they don't have my size. But that being said, can we find out from our 5 supervisors, are they listening? Is this making a difference? All the speeches, all the conversations, the anxiety, like I said last week at the Planning Commission, the anxiety in our neighborhood could not be worse. We're talking about, I don't want to say old people, 55 plus, that have an active lifestyle that are consumed by coming to these meetings, which I don't think is fair. I think we should come to these meetings to talk about other things. That piece of property could be warehouses, vendors for Eli Lilly. Bring it on. Bring on all the economic development we can do. But can we not wait until next year to find out if this is even working? I was told by a number of people, and I understand politics, you show up with the numbers, the media picks it up, They love it. I don't think that's the case anymore with social media. You don't have to go anywhere. You can be on social media and share your thoughts. So with that, the question is, can we get an answer? You're not going to be able to answer me right now. I don't want you to, but could you get with your bosses and say, you know what, as an administrator, you live here, they all live here, our families live here, their families live here. Can we just put this to bed and move on to something else? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. So it's important, we talked about process a little bit and things that are way out into November and October and January, but on Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors do have a meeting at 3 o'clock. They also have a meeting at 7 o'clock. And on their 3 o'clock agenda is for consideration 2 initiating resolutions. One of those initiating resolutions related to the M1, M2, and the second initiation resolution regarding the TOD. So it's important that you know that that is on the board's agenda. Ultimately, it's a new business, and they will consider whether or not those resolutions are referred to the Planning Commission for their consideration. So we talk big picture, some long-term stuff, but short term, this topic will be on the board's agenda for Tuesday, September the 1st, after a 3 o'clock meeting. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Paula Margolis, 9432 Tesserae Way in Mosaic. I'm going to echo what Barry, our last speaker, just said, and then the speaker who spoke at this microphone before him, which is, it can't be any more clear that nobody wants the data centers. Nobody wants them. Nobody wants them. It cannot be any more clear if an anvil was dropped on your head like coyote running through the desert. Okay, it's really clear. So my question is, do the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission think that we don't know what's in our own best interest? Do they think that they know better what's in our own best interest? And if so, why do they believe that?
Would you like for me to answer that?
Yeah.
I respect that perspective. I can't speak for those gentlemen, so it's hard for me to say what is on their minds. That would again be a great question to ask the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors, but I can't speak for them.
Whoever is here from those two bodies, please take note. This question is going to get asked. And if the answer is no, that they don't know better than we do of what's in our own best interest, why are they going forward with this? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Nick Klein. My wife and I live at 9733 Kaleidoscope Row over in Mosaic, and I've spoken several times before. Tonight, to the first question, the proposal to limit data centers to West Creek only. It couldn't be a more blatant abuse of power, because supervisors in districts 1, 2, and 3 protect their citizens, protect all that livestock, and protect their own homes. So they are conflicted if they even attempt to vote on this. So what I suggest, there needs to be a vote, but you can't vote with 2 supervisors. So here's who needs to vote, right? So if you can look with your legal counsel at the disqualifying fact that those 3 supervisors are pre-biased to vote for data centers only in West Creek. Why? Because the Valley Link transmission line will create ample data center fertile fields below and around that transmission line in their backyard. And they're trying to actually make this a statement of policy that protects themselves and their friends and family. So again, legal question, are they conflicted? Yes, and then let's put it to a vote with the citizens and ask it not, should data centers go in West Creek? Let's rewrite it. Should Goochland County have any data centers? Right?
Thank you.
Okay, now.
I got another one?
Yeah, I
Okay.
got more.
All right.
I got more. And I've said this before. I'll say it every time I come up. Your timeline's missing an important date. So in 2018, the Board of Supervisors voted for what?
I think you're going to say Reader's Branch and Mosaic.
There you go. And when they did that, it's funny it's not on there, they created a lasting and permanent moral obligation to take care of us, right? And one of the Planning Commission and one of the Board of Supervisors has said in public and by email that they were opposed to it then. Doesn't matter. When it was voted in and they became supervisors later, or they were there then, they have to take care of us. It's their sworn obligation to care for these people. Okay. That's number two. Number three, we were all here for the track circus, right? And on this stage, the woman from track told us that the property value of our homes being next to the data center would actually appreciate faster than anyone else. She said that. That absolute lie makes anything else she says unbelievable. They are not a credible witness, and any stack of paper or documents online that they give you is not to be believed. It is so egregious that I would like to ask you to declare a moratorium. And for the next 24 months, study data centers and the effect on health. There's a Harvard study that showed one data center in Northern Virginia leads to 3.5 to 6.4 premature deaths, okay? And it's not next to a 55 and up community. How many of us do you want to put to death to put up this data center, right? Okay. You don't have to answer that right now. Okay. So, the last thing, and here is the qualifying question before you consider any data center application. I'll use Tuckahoe as an example. What is the sound of 300 diesel generators running at the same time, right? What is it? And if you don't know that answer, you can admit that. And you'll say, oh, well, they can only run 10 a day. Well, that's 10 a day every day for all year, which is bad enough. But as an earlier speaker said, the Department of Energy declared an emergency on the 30th of June, and for 4 days, the grid operator could push anyone off of the grid. And do you know, they didn't. The grid survived. But here's the scariest thing. On July 22nd, there was a wobble in the grid. And the AI-driven hyperscale data centers jumped off the grid. 4,000 megawatts of power disappeared instantly. There was no committee, there was no human. It is a feature of new data centers, and your ability to regulate them, zero. Your ability to find them, zero. There is no controlling the AI-driven machinery that takes it on and off the grid. And to answer that earlier question, AI told me, and I admit it's a great tool, AI told me that 300 diesel generators is the equivalent of I'm sorry, I'm really dry, a 747 taxiing down Mosaic Creek Boulevard. Okay? Think of that. Or an F-16 flyover at 500 feet that never leaves, right? So ask that question before you ask any other question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I don't know the answer to that question, but that's what we have asked TRAC to deliver to us. So we will see how they respond to that question as we have asked them to provide that modeling to us. So we'll see what they respond. So I think, this is not going to be a popular point too, but I think it's important to know some of the things that we as a local government can and cannot do. And it goes back to Mr. Moore's point about the Dillon Rule. The Dillon Rule does restrict county government. In other words, we cannot do anything unless we have the explicit authority to do so from the General Assembly. So the county does not have the ability to declare a moratorium. If any application, please let me finish, Kathy. If any application comes across our desk, we are required to process that through our established standards. And so if the state of Virginia were to declare a moratorium, then ultimately that was something that would apply to us. But whether we like it or not, we don't have the ability to say, no, we can't accept your application. We are obliged to go through the process, whether we like the project or not. And so that's where we are at this point in time. Let's see, who was next? Jen.
Hi, Jen Strozier. I'm in Oilville, right across from the Oilville Industrial Park, and it's kind of terrifying to think we may have, we may be next. So this is a question I have. Why are we bringing data centers here? And I'm wondering, did this idea originate with the Economic Development Authority Chair Ben Sloan? And are they being brought here to solve an economic issue? Are we indeed headed off a financial cliff? Is that why we're bringing it? And why have none of us seen any numbers showing that we have to bring these data centers here in order to pay our bills? Also, the data center that's going in West Creek is 2 times the size of the largest data center in Virginia. That's insane. The other thing, there's so much, what is the percentage of the population in that TOD? You told us the percentage of the TOD. What about the population? Other people were asking that. Do you know that?
I don't know it off.
You don't know? Okay, so that's a good question. The other issue I have when we talk about who has, it seems like you guys have the authority, not you, but the supervisors, have the authority to bring the data centers here, but not to protect us from the data centers. And that's an issue. And then when we talked about our General Assembly and maybe Congress and our governor, who does have that protection? And I know our senator, Luther Cyphers, doesn't even know about the data centers in Goochland. He just posted today when I asked him about the data centers, are you talking about the dozens of data centers in Northern Virginia? There are hundreds of data centers. So our representative has not been, I would have assumed that our supervisors would have let all of our representatives know in the General Assembly what is happening here, and he seems absolutely clueless. What he does, what he is for is the giant gas power plant that's about to go in Cumberland County, set to be built in 2030, that is being built to power all of these data centers. It's like this crazy loop of bringing all this polluting, awful stuff to our land in order to power these things that we don't want. So the gas power plant, Valley Link, flock cameras, data centers, they're all the same thing. And we have not heard why they're coming here. We don't want them, so why are they coming here? And again, back to what everybody else said. I know, another one. So Congressman Subramaniam in Northern Virginia, he's expressed a lot of concern with the data centers because it's a national security risk. If you want to take out the U.S. and we have some enemies, go after our data centers. We're going to have the largest data center in Goochland. So that's also a risk. I don't know if you guys thought about it. But the main thing is, like, we just don't have the trust that you guys are here to protect us. It seems like you are just hell-bent on bringing these things in here for whatever reason. We haven't even heard the explanation of why they're coming. And you don't have the power to protect us from them. I don't know if there's a question in there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Riley.
So I would encourage you to go online and watch the August, I don't know the specific date, but the August 2024 joint work session between the EDA and the Board of Supervisors. That was posted here on the screen. So it's all publicly posted, live stream. You have a chance to check that out and get some more detail regarding the conversation that took place at that time. Your question about number of residents, let me look into that. We'll post it on our frequently asked questions sheet, okay? All right. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Dr. Raley. So I have really three things to speak to and appreciate the time. The first one has been spoken to a lot tonight, but to your point, it's going to be before the Board of Supervisors as soon as next week. And that's about the county justifying allowing data centers only in the eastern two districts, specifically the TOD, despite there being, to your point, M1 and M2 throughout all the districts. And the reasoning that I'm seeing tonight and earlier is a number of things. The eastern two districts are the most, and so I'll refute them. The eastern two districts, while the TOD occupies only the 2.4% of Goochland, the two districts that it impacts the most, districts 4 and 5, are the most densely populated areas in Goochland, approximately 50% of the Goochland population. And then we also have heard that it makes sense to put them in the east, in the TOD, because the west doesn't have the infrastructure. Well, guess what? Neither does the east. We are on purchased water from Henrico, paid for by taxpayers. Thank you, ad valorem tax. And that is due to run out that contract in 2031 with a possible 10-year extension. I'm not hearing any plans about building the infrastructure for water by Goochland. So then let's talk about electricity. And interestingly enough, the American Society of Civil Engineers just today, or this week, came out with its ratings of states on infrastructure. Virginia got a C, but they break it down further. Virginia got a D on energy. So I'm not putting a whole lot of faith in any of Goochland County being able to have the electrical supplies, transmission, distribution, even really generation that's going to be required by hyper data centers. It's the best we have is the SEC and Dominion putting us in the queue, and to the gentleman's earlier point, that might be 15 years out. Then I heard tonight, and I guess I heard it before, but I was reminded of it tonight, that the East has the better access to roads. The last I saw, I-64 went by all of Goochland, not just the East. And I guess to say that the county has always planned on this development being in the eastern districts, and they point often to the comprehensive plan, the 2014, the 2015 comprehensive plan. And I guess I find that a little meaningless, because the comprehensive plan that was established in 2015 has not been reviewed every 5 years according to state law. And rather than it being the guidepost that it should be, what seems to be happening is that randomly changes are made by our Goochland County officials to the 5-year plan, to the comprehensive plan, to justify their decisions. That is a backwards approach to what a comprehensive plan should be. So moving on, off of the western districts, and we love the western districts. I can't thank the first speaker tonight on what she said enough about we are a united county. How can the county be in favor of data centers being built when they are against Valley Link? Yeah. And struggling to support even a gun range? The arguments that I listen to on the live streams on the media are the same arguments. The arguments made against Valley Link and the gun range are around noise, environmental impact, and loss in property value. Sound familiar? Why are the citizens in the western districts, and again, I'm glad they're being listened to, but why are they being listened to and heard, and we have the same concerns in the east, and we're not being listened to? Don't districts 4 and 5 deserve to have their quality of life preserved as well? It seems that the eastern 2 districts, 4 and 5, are considered by Goochland County officials to be the handmaiden for the entire county. We are asked to produce the revenue at any cost and have it spent elsewhere. The county has, by all accounts, and by admissions, found itself overwhelmed by this response to the TOD over the last 9 months. Hard to believe, it feels like 9 years. And now, how in the world are the county going to manage what's going to be even more of a chance to be overwhelmed when these 1,000+ citizens who are speaking at these hearings, writing letters, pushing back, suddenly start calling on a complaint-driven process to the county to say, I'm hearing noise too loud. I'm seeing air quality affected. My water pressure has gone down. The lighting is still going on at night. The traffic on construction is awful. And we have one county zoning inspector. I dare say that will be overwhelming. So, you know, what I guess I'll finish with is I don't see a plan to obtain the necessary resources and reconsider this complaint-driven to even monitor this monster once it gets built and there's a shovel in the ground. And while I look around and I think this is deja vu, we keep doing the same things over and over again, there is a difference. There's more red shirts. There's more donations coming to support a litigation. People are getting madder and louder and more in number and more united across the county in how we feel. And I guess if there's a good thing that comes out of that, it's the unification of the county. I'll clap for that. So I will end with that, and thanks for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. One second, real quick. So we talked about September 1st, which is Tuesday at 3 o'clock and also at 7 o'clock. The board does have a legislative conversation with our Virginia delegation in the Senate and the House. So Senator Cyphers has been invited, Delegate Navarre has been invited, and Delegate Garrett has been invited. And I believe 2 of the 3 will be there on Tuesday. A chance for the board to engage with our 2 delegates and our senator regarding a variety of topics that are happening in Goochland County. That is a public meeting. It's at Central High School, which is on Dogtown Road. That starts at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, so it's open to the public and everybody's welcome. Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Boyer. I live in Kaleidoscope Row in Mosaic. As I look around and I see all these red shirts, I wonder if we came with the right color, because the last time the redcoats came, they didn't make it. My head is about ready to explode. I'm hearing, let me recap a little bit here. 48% of the population in Goochland lives on 15% of the land. Of that 15%, 1.9% will be data centers as part of the TOD. 52% of the people live on 85% of the land. They're not getting any data centers. Now, everybody thinks that the people out there are jumping up and down and saying, well, thank you very much, we're not getting any data centers. Well, there are an awful lot of people out there that own property. They've been trying to make a living off of it their whole life, and all of a sudden, they thought they were going to sell their property and go and retire and enjoy life. They've been told, you can go ahead and sell your property, but you are not going to jump on the profits from the data centers that are available. But we, as Goochland County, we're definitely going to jump on that bandwagon, and we're going to get all the money that we possibly can. Now, somebody said, if we don't have it, you don't need it. Goochland County needs it. If we go back and look, we look at the bond that was floated back in 2002 for $99 million. 2002, that's 24 years ago. It's been refinanced 3 times. We still owe $71 million of that between interest and principal. Now, we have finally turned the corner and we are paying more on principal than interest, but it's still $71 million. I'll have to give credit to Dr. Raley. He has stepped up to the plate. He is throwing a lot more money into that pot to pay that $71 million, but the rest of it is coming from the redcoats. We are paying that. Now, don't go looking in the county budget for that $71 million problem. It's not in there. It's considered a self-funded debt. Therefore, it is not part of the county budget, and it's self-funded by us. So here we are. Do we need the data centers? Yes, we do need the data centers. But, however, I think it's been very clear. We've been listening to it for months now. We've been listening to it all night long. The data centers do not belong in TOD West. I have a resolution to the problem. TOD West is made up of 900 acres. We'll trade you 900 acres of the TOD West gets removed from the plan. We give you 900 acres that is known as James River Detention Center. This, don't laugh, this property is owned by the state of Virginia and was closed in 2011 and is considered abandoned. They have no use for it. The property could be moved into the TOD to meet the requirement that a data center can only be built in the TOD. It has infrastructure in place to meet that requirement, and it would be a perfect place for a data center. And another caveat, it already has a gun shooting range on it so that Mr. Winfrey can open up his gun shooting area. You're laughing, but it's not funny. It's fact, and I think we need to consider it a lot.
Thank you. So I'll take a pat on the back, trust me, but I can't take credit for that defeasance. It was done before my arrival, but the county did send, I think it was $16 million to help pay off that debt a little bit earlier, but certainly was before I got here. I think it's important, the county does every year take $4.5 million from the general fund and spend that on the debt service for the Tuckahoe Creek Service District. And of course, all of that is generated by all of our homeowners. But yeah, appreciate you bringing that forward. Thank you. Mr. Williamson.
Another one known by name. I'm Rob Williamson. I live in District 4. I'm assuming that the drive for the prohibition is the 85-15 ratio that's in the comprehensive plan to keep 85% of the county rural. I also think the drive for data centers is being driven by the 70-30 ratio, where we want 70% residential and 30% revenues from commercial. Well, you know what the 70-30 ratio has been since 2015. If you look in the economic development and land use sections, it's mentioned twice. 82-18. So we've been stuck at 82-18 since 2015, at least. And whose fault is that? It's whoever is approving residential that's outrunning. Every time you get an Eli Lilly, you approve several hundred homes. So we're our own worst enemy when it comes to the ratio of commercial to residential. So with that in mind, track, put up on the board up there some criteria for whether a data center is safe, desirable, going to be a revenue generator, and it's not going to harm the residents. And those were the 4 S's. And I'd like to go over those. But you can't see it, you can't hear the sounds, you can't smell it, and you don't get sick from it. Well, that's very easy to project up and say that the wind is going to disperse the exhaust of the diesels over so many, distribution of air as it moves across the land. Well, let's look at C. You can't see it. They presented a person standing at the property line with 60-foot trees and the geometry. Of course, you can't see it. But if you stand at Satterwhite's at Broad and Mannequin Road in the winter, you can see this top level of Amazon across 64 in the northeast quadrant. So there are going to be places like the high points of Mosaic or the high points of Reader's Branch or the high points of Kinlock that the elevation of the homes are going to be higher than the tree line at the property line. So there will be cases where it will be seen, and that's not being addressed. The sound, you can't hear it. The most destructive decibels are the C that rattle the glass of neighboring houses. You can't hear it. It's inaudible to the human ear. So that criteria is debunked. You can't smell it. The vast majority of toxins and carcinogens in diesel exhaust are odorless. You can't smell what's going to harm you. And the 4th one is it doesn't make you sick. Well, I refer back to sound and smell. So if you use that as a criteria for approval in your county leadership, that is very basic, misleading on purpose criteria. And apparently they projected that because they've gotten feedback from the county. That's all it takes. So I think there needs to be a little more defense in depth in exactly what those are, the conditions that the residents are going to be presented with. Now, prohibition on data centers outside of TOD sounds pretty permanent, but it's only temporary at best. Data centers were previously prohibited on the 900 acres of TOD West prior to its inclusion in the TOD. They were prohibited. They're agricultural land. You can't build data centers on agricultural land, so there's a prohibition by the ordinance. So this is a case study for everybody in districts 1, 2, and 3. The TOD West, if the conditions are right, the county needs it, leadership is in favor of it, they've been convinced by a potential data center user, land acquisition or whatever that is, and checks all the boxes at the time, it'll be approved 3-2, 4-1. So that's a case study in that things can change. So I also have some constructive feedback that has come to me. How about you don't approve a TOD data center until you know who the end user is, and not approve it for a person that's running a land acquisition company. This whole process, you designated a TOD, you don't know what the end product is. You build a box or a circle that these are the criteria, sound, whatever, setbacks. And then a land acquisition company is going to tell you, oh yeah, we're going to make sure that it fits in the box. And even if you give us the COP, we're going to make sure that it's in the proffers. Well, then the end user comes in and he's got a square peg to stick in your round hole. So what are you going to do? You're going to start rounding the edges to make it fit. So there'll be waivers. There'll be things like that that'll get changed because you don't know who the end user is when you make the approval. The new state laws require an impact study for resources, et cetera. How about the county institute a required residential neighborhood impact focused study to be required at the same time, in addition to the state? How about putting FAR back into M1 and M2? It was taken out in 2024 because we needed a data center. We got to get this barrier out of the way. Now we know what sizes are coming in. Let's establish what an acceptable FAR is and put it back into the requirements in order to get this prohibition passed. And a lot of times when I come to board meetings, I look at unintended consequences. What happens if Eli Lilly puts in a request to have a power line run to their property, and then Tuckahoe TOD West, they need 3 substations, so they're going to jump on to Eli Lilly's application. And then another location puts in a formal application, and they're going to jump on to Eli Lilly because they're waiting 4 or 5 years to get power. Is it going to be delayed because of the TOD West? Is it going to be delayed because of an additional data center proposal? You're going to end up losing Eli Lilly if you delay them. And that's just an unintended consequence that you need to be, cognizant of. Let's talk about property values increasing that was proposed. I saw an article, and the reason adjacent data center properties increase in value is because they're going to spread. People want to buy them up to expand data centers. That's what's driving the cost of nearby land, not the fact that your house goes up. And last, I'll leave you with this. If you made any decision about whether a data center is good or bad in the TOD, and it's based on the fact that golf courses use a lot of water, you're a victim of propaganda. First off, data centers, their usage is at one point. It shows golf course usage tremendously higher. Well, there's 16,000 golf courses in this country. Only 11% use public water, and they're in the desert because they have to use public water. So really, that value should be 80% lower for the comparison, not the big skew that is shown. So it's not a fair comparison. It's misleading on purpose, and that was the intent of presenting it to this leadership of this county, in my opinion. So I'll leave you with those comments. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. Appreciate it. Ms. Crockett.
You ready for me?
I don't know. I'm
Okay.
always ready.
First off, I want to put a couple things in perspective because not everybody can take a vision and understand what it's really going to look like and sound like down the road. For instance, the 800 acres that they're talking about putting into this new data center is equivalent to 606 football fields. Put that in perspective. Second thing, how many people in here use a blow dryer? Raise your hand. It's loud. You can't talk over it, can you? Do you know the average decibel of a blow dryer is 60 to 96? You people that are going to be living in this data center are going to be hearing a blow dryer 24/7. Put that in perspective. Most of you people, and I was the same until I looked it up and I was shocked. It's incomprehensible. It's like saying, oh, it's $1 trillion on our debt service, for instance. Who the heck knows how much $1 trillion is? Has anybody in here touched $1 trillion? Has anybody seen how much $1 trillion is? It's the same way with the data centers. If you cannot visualize what you're approving, you have no business approving it. That's the first point. Second point that I find it hard to believe it's not being pushed more, but our Virginia Constitution guarantees
our protection from exactly these things. I have read it every time I come out here, and there's never a word, never. So if y'all want a big lawsuit, you start bucking against the constitutional amendments in Virginia at what our citizens are entitled to. And basically it comes out to a zero-sum game. Zero noise, zero water use, zero smell, zero odor, the whole 9 yards. Because that Constitution protects us 100% from loss of our rights. And those are big rights. They're not little Goochland County supervisors signing NDAs and doing backroom deals. This is a big thing. And you don't think all these people would be willing to sign on to a lawsuit where their constitutional amendments in Virginia have been trampled on? You all have another thing coming. You need to decide what kind of lawsuit you want to end up with. Now, I have a friend that wanted me to ask 2 questions. One of them is ask if an impact study was done before there was a vote by the Board of Supervisors, and if so, where is it for the public to see? And I believe that you all took what Tract put out there as the economic study, and Goochland doesn't have any intention of doing their own to check the figures. Because they put a lot of figures in there that were spoken about at that meeting that were not true, and there's been no response.
Yeah. So, Ms. Crockett, to answer your question, of course, I'd love to talk about the ordinances, but everything has bled together, which is understandable. We have asked Tract for a variety of things. I think, as the gentleman said, there were 20 that are required and 10 or 13 that we're recommending that would be in their best interest to do. And a lot of that is included in what we're asking them to send back. We are already working that should this application move forward, that we have consultants that would be acting on behalf of the county to evaluate whatever Tract sends to us. We need an impartial third-party perspective on that. And so from a financial analysis to air quality analysis, we are working to have experts working on behalf of the county to evaluate the answers that we get. So,
okay, the other question that I brought up previously was regarding the water use. And we keep being told you're getting the water from Henrico, they're buying it, they're paying for it, so forth. At what time does the water run low in Henrico and they cut Goochland off? Let me tell you what's going to happen. They're going to want to run some kind of a pipeline to the James River and suck it out of the James River. There have been no cumulative studies on water use except the one that just came out, stating that everything east of 95 is maxed out and they can't have any more water. We're just a hop, skip, and a jump from there. What do you think is going to happen? Really? There are people in this county now who've had to dig multiple wells just to hit water. There are multiple people in this county that have had to re-drill their well because they ran out of water. What are y'all going to do? What are y'all going to do? And I have one more question. Out in the western end of the county, they have started running fiber optic cables about this big around and putting huge boxes in the ground. What are those for?
I'm sorry, ask your question again. I was thinking about, ask your question again, please.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I got a lot going on.
In the western end of the county, at George's Tavern area, all the way through to Haydensville 5. Straight shot. They are digging holes, burying cable this big around. My husband says it's fiber optic cable, but they're putting boxes in the ground this big, and they're 4 feet deep. Can you tell me what that's for?
At this time, I can't. I'm so happy to do some research on that. I think you had asked that question before, and Paul Drumright is our utilities guy, and so I'm going to ask him to do some research on that, and then we'll definitely get back to you.
Yeah, because I heard that these flock cameras are requiring a lot of that data to be transferred over these lines. That's my next question. Who approved the flock cameras, and how much is the county paying for those on an annual basis?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. That's a good question for the sheriff's office. The sheriff has been fielding those questions from our citizens, so I'd encourage you to reach out to him about that.
appropriates the money doesn't know how much they were spending?
Not tonight, Kathy. I don't have
Okay.
that right now. But we're happy to do some research on that and get back to you.
Okay, and then I'm going
Yeah.
to pull one more question.
Okay.
It's a question that they were asked at Tract. Would you live next to one of these data centers?
Would I live next to one of these data
Yeah.
centers?
Would you want to? How would you feel if it was your property next door in Mosaic?
I can empathize.
Would you be here fighting with
Yeah,
us?
I can empathize with all of you, and I am not fighting with anyone here this evening. My job is to administer the work of the county, and so if there is,
Let him answer.
I respect what everyone is saying, and so ultimately, my home is important to me, just like your homes are important to you. And I respect that everyone has moved here for a reason and has bought your homes for a reason and enjoys your way of life, just like I enjoy my way of life now, too. So I, as a homeowner, would also have the same concerns that are being brought forward. So I respect that. I've sat on a couple back porches, and some of you said, see this back here? I want to keep that. And I respect that. I enjoy my backyard too. And I can understand how challenging and how difficult this is. I haven't walked a day in your shoes, but I can try to empathize and understand some of the concerns that you have. So,
Well, I've also said this. My husband and I moved here in 2000, but I recently found out that I have relatives that were here 250 years ago. I don't consider myself a come here anymore. I'm a resident. And I don't feel like any of the boards that are currently sitting are looking after our best interest. The next thing I would like to say with regard to that, if people do not know, there are 2 vacancies now on the Planning Commission for 2 resignations. They need to have 2 people step up in those districts so that there could be some chance before the November elections, when we switch out these boards, hopefully that's what's going to happen, that we could go on and get those people in place that have our interest at heart. I believe it's districts 2 and 3.
yeah, there are currently 2 openings on the Planning Commission, one in District 2 and one in District 3. So go on our website, there's a press release about that and where you can sign up if you live in those districts and you're interested in serving. Mr. Spoonhauer and Mr. Winfrey will be evaluating those, and at the end of the day, that would be an appointment made in public by the Board of Supervisors at a public meeting. So check out the website and sign up if you are interested and live in those districts. Dr. Hayden, thank you for your patience.
You're welcome. The last time I was here, I must have excited you quite a bit because there was an uproar and you left out while I was exercising my freedom of speech. I'm going to try to do that again tonight. Dr. Rayl, I have all respect for you in a position that you're in. And as the Lord said, we respect those that are in a position where they govern us. But we are not in that arena so much as we have decided to be a democracy. And with God, whom I serve, it's a theocracy. My point is that basically, I don't have the confidence that you all will carry out. I think that you are on a track and on a route that you've decided that you're already going to travel, and that you're in it. I don't know whether you want to get out of it or not. I don't think you want to get out of it, because if you can take the pressure of thousands, of hundreds of people coming before you, asking you time and again, will you do something about this? We don't want this. It's louder and louder than the noise that they are talking about that the data centers are going to make. You need to hear what people are saying. I'm not in the eastern part of the county. I'm from the western part of the county. I do not have faith that you will not, at the time, not you particularly, but our representatives, at the time that you need it, that whenever is going on there in the eastern part, you'll move it to the western part. And I do not believe that any of us, any segment in this county is safe from this type of thing. And that is a bad thing because if we don't have confidence in government and representation, and I know about this because my great-grandfather was a slave. He was disenfranchised of his rights to be able to live his life the way that he wanted to live it. Well, you say, what does that have to do with this? This has everything to do with that because this is the same old story that you don't listen to people, not you particularly, you don't listen to people, you don't value their opinion, you ride over them, All these people are coming here. I come in here today, I saw people come in here like they were going to Daytona Beach and they were coming because they had an agenda that they want to be heard. And this is the question, how much does it take for us to be able to have our voices heard? That is a problem. In other words, if you ride over this, then this is tyranny. This is tyranny at its best. When you have people when you have people telling you, we do not want this. Now I hear some people compromising, we'll have it if you do this. The bottom line is the real soul and voice of the people that are here is that we do not want this. We do not want it. I mean, we are spiritual beings, and we are trying to basically bring in a new, you can listen to it or not, but we're trying to bring in a new world order. This is a U-turn for the way of life of most of the people in this county and most of the people in this country. AI is not good. I don't care what you think, it's not good. I'm in medicine, and AI has a hand that reaches every time, every patient that I see, AI is standing here. You do this. I don't think that's proper for this particular person because I've known this person for 20 years. I don't think this is proper. They don't care what you think is proper. What this data center is fueling is flock cameras so that you don't have, it's surveillance. It's surveillance. And it's going to come the time when you're not going to have, you think this is good, but and we're worried about our environmental situation. How it will affect, and you should be, because if you're living near stuff like that, it's going to affect you medically. But there is a deeper unseen undercurrent in this whole thing. And I'm not paranoid. I've been here 70 years, and I've seen stuff. And what people do, I've seen drugs come in, and they say they're just fine. The next year they come out, they took the drug off the market because it was killing people. And so what I'm saying here is that this is for AI. This is not for the regular common person. I have my intelligence. God gave it to me. I don't need an artificial intelligence. And so why? And as I finish this up, the question is, and I know you didn't originate this, but the question is, why do we need monster data centers? Why? It's simply because this is an agenda of a few corporate giants that want to control people so that they don't have the decision making for themselves, that they can work when they want to work, they can come when they want to come, they don't have to be surveilled. Nobody wants to be surveilled. This is the hallmark and the root of this particular thing. Flock cameras. Why you need flock cameras? Why you need to know where I'm going? Am I a criminal? I'm not a criminal. Why do you need to surveil people? Why do we need to spend our tax money, work, and spend our tax money for a system that's going to eat us up like they did in the medieval days? So why don't you just let us vote on it? Why don't you just put it on the ballot in November. Well, maybe probably it wouldn't, because we voted back here some time ago for what was it, redistricting stuff, and they rolled over it. So I don't know if that will help either. But one thing for sure is that if we don't satisfy the mass of the people are going to rise up. People are not, yeah. I know. But you handle people right, and you won't have a revolution.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden. Paul, would you see if you can find me a chair? We'll stand here for a little while. Thank you. Mr. Halverson.
Greetings and salutations. I'm Lee Halverson. I live in Reader's Branch. I've got an observation or two, and then I'll end with a question. The observation is, I think you've got the cart before the horse. And the entire staff and the Board of Supervisors and the commissions are all overworked. You don't have the tools, the ways to define proper use, the ways to define a policy for putting monsters like this next to residential areas. So I'm thinking, why not pause data centers and sort of see if you can figure out what the citizens want and what they're willing to accept, if they're willing to accept data centers at all. I personally am not, but some folks are willing to compromise. You don't have the information now. All you have is what your staff has come up with, what TRACT has come up with, and what happens behind closed doors with the Economic Development Authority to guide you. And so every decision that we make, that you make, is done one-off. It's new every time because you don't have use standards. You don't have a comprehensive plan. So let's pause, start with a comprehensive plan, move to a strategic plan, or vice versa, whatever works best for you, and then engage the citizens in coming up with use standards in how these zonings how they can be amended. And stop doing this one-off, because every time, somebody said it earlier, we modify the comprehensive plan when we need to justify the decision we made. Well, let's put the tools in place first. Now, we're a Dillon state, I know that, but other counties are working around it. There are ways to do it. I'm sure that you've got a great staff. I'm sure that they can coordinate with other counties to figure out how to pause these things. We don't want M1s with data centers or M2s with data centers. We don't want data centers in Goochland because they are not healthy and they're a false promise. They're a myth. They're a myth. So I urge you to do that. I'm asking you, my question is, will you consider taking those agenda items off the agenda for next week?
That is a consideration that would need to be done the day of the board meeting. The agenda has been published, and ultimately that's still a decision as the board would consider the approval of the agenda that day, that they could choose to take those items off the agenda.
Okay. I really think that you really need to do that to make either a de facto moratorium or an actual moratorium, whichever is possible, to address getting yourselves the tools to make these kind of decisions so it's consistent across the county. And it's not just an immediate thing, but it's a long-range look at what it takes to be successful. That's all I've got. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
your
Lee.
work.
Appreciate it. Mr. Hayden.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The first thing is the non-disclosures. I know TRAC talked about that. They had some in the past. And I mentioned at the last board meeting that we shouldn't probably have them. Well, we should not have them because it takes away transparency. And I understand you're saying you want to keep the relationship with those companies that come in, whether they're Microsoft, whether they're Meta or Amazon, whoever they are. But it's a two-edged sword. It might keep the relationship with them, but it hinders our relationship as Goochlanders with Goochland officials, and it diminishes our trust, to be honest. And now my other point I know that geographically we are east and west, but we are all Goochlanders. And the data center in the east impacts us in the west, and we don't want them either. And it's such a big impact because we got Valley Link coming in. And I know that it's said that, well, they're not going to power data centers, but that could change. We got the fueling station that's out there all from us in the west. And it's a big thing because I get the phone calls that, hey, you want to sell your property multiple times a day, the text messages and the emails. So people want to put these things in. But to be honest, Goochland is saying loud and clear, we don't want that. So, I mean, I think that the board, you need to hear. I mean, I brought eardrops in case you can't hear, but you need to hear. It's serious. Goochland has said, we don't want these data centers. So we should table that and get rid of that and not have that because they go hand in hand with, like it was said, Flock, Valley Link, industries that will poison public health, and industries, I saw a video where they put one in Texas and the cattle farms around there started having stillborn calves because of the vibrations from the equipment there. So that's the calves. Imagine what it could do to people. Even though we get these studies, they're short term. We don't have long-term studies. We don't have a 20-year study. We don't have a lifetime study. So it's dangerous to jump up and do this thing and just put it out there. So, and also, these things are going to power Valley Link. We're going to have Valley Link. We're going to have data centers like Meta and Flock, things that will surveil us also, things that we as Goochlanders shouldn't have to put up with and have to deal with. So if we said no, it should be simple. No. And if that is such a hard thing to do, put it on the ballot. Let us make the decision. Let us vote on it. It'll be handled.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Mehmet Kamurdun. I live in the Running Cedar Trail. So I have, one simple question and an observation. So these companies, Eli Lilly, Capital One, CarMax, do they know that they will be working right next to a data center? Would they actually stay, where they are once actually the people who work there actually are exposed to this pollution, the noise, and all that stuff? If I were actually working at Cap One and I was actually exposed to that, I would leave. I would just find a job somewhere else. And I imagine that those companies are actually going to eventually pack up and leave. On top of that, the house values are going to come down, right? I'm going to ask the county to reduce the value of my house so I can pay a lower tax. So these companies are going to go. You're not going to make as much money from the houses, the property taxes. So you will get less revenue other than these data centers. So it might be just a push. And on top of that, actually, I am in the financial sector, so I do follow these companies closely. So the AI does not make money. So they spend $20 to make $1. So they are losing money as they do. So they, because they cannot make money, right? They borrowed $1.5 trillion, $1.5 trillion to make this thing continue go on and on. So the future of AI is not even certain. So it might actually, change overnight at one point. So at the end of the day, you won't have residents, you won't have regular businesses, and you're going to have all these old buildings full of old burned out chips, and it's going to be a dead zone. So did you actually talk with Eli Lilly, Capital One, and CarMax and tell them that you are building a data center, and are they happy with it? Do they know, and what do they say?
Yeah, we have had conversations with Eli Lilly. They are very well aware of the technology overlay district. I go back to about a year ago. I was getting to know many of our businesses in the community and had a business retention meeting with Capital One and made them aware of the technology overlay district. That's been a year ago. Haven't had any engagement with them since.
That's really sad, I think they are as misguided as the Goochland County. But thanks for listening to me.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Really?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. So I feel like our focus here might be a bit narrow for the long term. I think we're focused on data centers and what we don't want. And I think this is our opportunity to craft something that will bring what we do want. I think we need to not say data centers are not allowed here or there or anywhere. I think we need to say any industry that is going to be an energy hog, a water hog, a pollutant, a disruption to our way of life that we want to preserve does not belong here. And we need to be creative in crafting that language to be specific enough to keep those future industries at bay, as well as not so ambiguous that those industries can later massage those ordinances into allowing them to come in, much like they are using the 2014 reference to data center in 2026, when it's clearly not equitable in terms. And I think we've left ourselves wide open to exploitations like this because we've not kept our standards and our definitions and our plans current and revised. We're not looking at current socio trends and financial trends and industrial trends. And so we're caught off guard by people using terms today that have a new meaning today, but we're still 50 years ago looking at that meaning that's written down on a piece of paper. We dropped the ball. And I thank you for trying to pick it up and run. You need a lot more help. You need to pull on the residents who have the technical expertise in the areas. We're all willing to help you. I learned this summer going to a Tenaska power plant meeting over in Fluvanna. It's not just Cumberland that's getting a massive power plant. They're doubling the size of the power plant in Fluvanna as well. They sit across from the river from each other. They're pulling their water from the James River. They're dumping it back essentially into the James River, but by way of the Rivanna River. They're building more infrastructure to pollute our area because Northern Virginia doesn't have the air quality to allow more generation of power in that region. And whoever brought up that, oh, we're going to sneak data centers in through Southwest Virginia, it's already happening. It's not, it will happen, it is happening. And so, one good thing, citizens are uniting. We are communicating. But this is the wrong thing to communicate about. There should be a lot better positive things that we could do with our time and energy rather than race to the bottom of the hill in a mud pit. We weakened our parking regulations for the data centers and TOD so that they could build larger spaces because they didn't need parking spaces for employees. What that did was effectively enlarge the footprint of what could come in. And I believe we did that specifically for Tract, who was going to come in. That's not right. They shouldn't decide how many parking spaces are needed for a building that they're not going to use in 5 or 10 or 15 years that they build as a warehouse so somebody else can come in. That footprint space for parking should be restored for all areas. It limits the footprint of the building that can be built, and it allows for flexibility of future use of that space. It gives some glimmer of slice of hope that we won't be stuck with a cement tomb on our agricultural land that Tract said outright, agricultural land in forestry is not agricultural use. That's disgusting. So, additionally, in my very limited land use and planning knowledge that I took as electives in college way back when, overlay districts were often used for increased protections in zoning areas. TOD does not increase protections. It does not. Also, when we have ordinances that say, this is our requirement for things, This is the standard setback. This is where we need a left-hand turn lane. This is where it's appropriate or inappropriate to make a road cut. Why do we not stick to those? Why do we go, oh, you want a conditional use permit? Oh, okay, you can do that. No, we have rules for a reason. If everybody has to follow the rules, you can then predict what's going to happen. Your residential area next to an agricultural area won't become an industrial area. That's follow the rules. Water use. I mentioned Tenaska and the Cumberland plant taking water from the river. And another person said, yeah, when TCSD fails, they're going to dig a line to the river. Are we looking at coordinating that water use regionally? We have 5 endangered species in this section of the river. Anybody looking at them? And there was one other thing. Oh, CUPs, they're malleable. We've established that, we've said that. CUPs do not protect anybody for long term. We just change them. And this county has a long history of just changing them after they're established and not enforcing them as they're written. We'll just change it after the fact. So, yeah, I think we need to look larger picture. We need to say, no, it's not just data centers we don't want. We don't want anything that's a mega thing that's going to suck all the life out of our area and change it inexorably for the next 150 years. So, as a Board of Supervisor once said, and I think I heard it echoed from every Planning Commission member, EDA member, and Board of Supervisors, and many staff people, don't mess it up. Susan Lascolette, just don't mess it up.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Before I welcome these comments, we are working as county government with our colleagues in many different jurisdictions right now on the topic of water. I had a meeting today with one of my colleagues about what they are planning and how there could be some potential partnerships. And it was referenced publicly at the board's work session regarding the strategic plan is how we need to build redundancies in our utilities, specifically water. And there is work that is happening with our friends in other jurisdictions other than Henrico. We're working closely with Henrico too. We are. I met with their county manager last week, and that's probably the 5th time that I've met with him since I started last year. There are purposeful conversations with our colleagues in Fluvanna and Louisa and Powhatan as well to see how we can all work together, because this is certainly a topic that we hear of often, and it's certainly something that the community-wide we need to work through together. But there is work that is happening on that topic. So, yes. Welcome.
I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
Yeah, it's okay. No worries.
As a high school student, no, I'm nervous.
You got this. You don't have to. Would you mind? Okay. You just speak as loud as you can. Okay.
As a high school student, I would like to know what.
Would you like for me to read off your phone? Would that be helpful? There's Miss Payne. We got this.
All right. You're doing so good.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you. This student here.
I recognize, but the name, yep.
Yep. Okay. So, do you want to do it together? Okay. So, what she is saying is, as a Goochland County public school student, I'd like to know what due diligence you have done to ensure our physical health, well-being, and mental health. Have you thought about what this data center would do to our mental state and our overall general health when we have to experience the noise, the air, and the water pollution in our everyday lives? Can you provide us with that research and data? And I see that your proposal is to keep the data centers away from here, but I and many of my friends live next door. You did great. This is beautiful. I live next door to where you are planning to put it, and that will have long-term effects on us. You're not only impacting our 55 plus, this is beautiful, community, you will be affecting our youth. Thank you.
Awesome. Well done.
That's a hard one to follow. So my name is Jessica Harrison, and I'm probably a new face here because I don't live in Goochland County. I live in Henrico. So
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. I see my neighborhood on the maps all the time. It's usually grayed out, probably not even considered. But so that's frustrating. So I'm standing here knowing that because I don't have a vote in Goochland County, that my voice probably holds less weight than everyone else's in this room. Although it doesn't sound like anyone's listening to anyone in this room either. But so it's frustrating to feel unheard and undervalued by a neighboring government whose decisions will directly impact my daily life. But the TOD district, it does not stop at the county border. It goes over the county border. Air, water, sound, do not recognize county borders. And to give you some perspective, I can kind of hear the noise from the Route 288 at my home already. So I don't care about decibel levels. I don't want to hear any Goochland data centers at my home. Like, I bought that home, I backed up to the nice Tuckahoe Creek, thinking there's a bunch of farmland back there. This is going to be great. Never once did I imagine I could have like a whole, not one, but like a campus of data centers in my backyard. When the wind blows, it's going to affect the air quality. And now I find out that they want to use Henrico water. When we were just told earlier this summer, when we didn't have enough rain, that we all needed to conserve our water. Henrico doesn't have extra water to give to Goochland for its data centers. We don't have extra power either. My power flickers when the temperatures are at 100 degrees for a week. There's no extra power to share for the Goochland data centers. And Henrico resident, I don't get any of the tax benefits of these Goochland data centers. So I want to know, what is Goochland doing to listen to Henrico residents on building these data centers, even though they're on Goochland land, but they're greatly affecting the quality of life of your neighbors right on the other side of the county border?
Thank you for being here. And you're welcome to attend any of our meetings. Many jurisdictions don't allow folks from other communities to speak, but you're more than welcome to attend any of our meetings and provide public comment as well. So feel free to be a part of the process. I've been in close communication with leadership in Henrico County to let them know about the Technology Overlay District, the letter that was sent to our residents on August the 13th, and knowing that we are neighbors to the east and west, want to continue to keep those lines of communication open with Henrico County.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Ms. Moore?
I want to thank the staff that helped write the rebuttal for the TTP.
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling a little bit because my blood sugar is not exactly correct right now, so I apologize.
You okay? Do you need a chair?
No, I'll be fine, but I'm not, with type 1 diabetes, I struggle.
Okay.
But I would like to applaud the timeline, even though there are a few things that are missing. But I think we can get those additional things in place. I've been here, and I've been married to my husband for 45 years, and I've lived in this community for 45 years. But my husband's family has been here 280 years. He's a Knuckles, okay? So when a comment was made that I'm a come here, okay? I married my husband, and I am not a come here. I respect that I live in the rural enhancement area, and I don't understand why right now that we're looking on Mannequin Road at a development that we can't afford to have, but yet we've got to go through the process, and I understand we have to go through the process. But my community feels like we've been through the last year and a half an enormous amount of stressors. We love Reader's Branch, we love Mosaic, we love everybody who lives in this community, but when is it going to be that we feel like we have absolutely been heard, and in that the action that is being taken? I feel like we need, like Lee says, that we need the comprehensive plan to be updated. I feel like Chapter 2, which is land use and villages, has been overlooked so long, and we still use those maps, those land use maps, to make decisions. We have, for 50 years, we have not evaded our subdivision ordinances. 50 years, they're 50 years old. They don't reflect our growing county, and I just don't understand that it keeps on. We were supposed to have it 2 years ago, and yet it's been put off for another 2 years, I understand, because of a new administration, because the old administration put it on the back burner. So we keep on putting things on the back burner. And this is, we need use standards. We need district standards, and we need development standards like yesterday. And we need to put them in place and stop saying, well, we'll get to it, in a year and a half.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Moore. I'd encourage you to read the pre-application that's online and the potential resolution to initiate to the Planning Commission. There is reference to use standards. And so your comments and those of our community that said that we need use standards has been heard. And that's a part of the work that would be a part of the first goal being articulated here this evening.
Clock, not at 7. You keep on saying
Okay.
it's at 7.
Been a long
It's
night.
6. It's 6.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, thanks.
It's all online too. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, so I have a comment and I have a question. I stated this last meeting we had. I don't understand how we got here in the first place with nobody wanting the TOD included, those 900 acres included in the TOD, but here we are. And my concern is that TRAC, the Board of Supervisors, and the landowners have been engaged in this, this communication and this courtship for much longer than we are all aware. I would say it's probably been 3 years or so that they've been engaged in this. And the non-disclosure agreements kind of just make me go, this doesn't look good. But that's just my comment. My question is, has the Army Corps of Engineers had anything to say about the water and how it would affect the Tuckahoe Creek watershed?
That's a great question. And so something that came up in a meeting I was in last Wednesday night, and that I have asked one of my teammates to reach out to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to have a meeting so that we can better understand their requirements. If you look at the trapped document that we sent back, we specifically reference their compliance with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So that certainly is a factor that we are asking them to share with us and as we evaluate their application. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I'm coming up here to talk about a health concern that I haven't been hearing anybody talk about. And the health concern has to do with electromagnetic frequencies. That has been a big health concern of our family because we actually have a daughter who has been diagnosed as being hyperelectric sensitive, especially after having had Lyme disease. She has pain around cell phone, Wi-Fi, and garage door openers. We have learned in trying to get help for her a lot about EMFs and some of the health concerns that they cause. We had to go out of state to get help. We went to an environmental center in Dallas. We have been to conferences put on for physicians, which there were physicians that attended nationwide, even worldwide, with the American Academy of Environmental Health. There are studies out there that talk about the problems that frequencies, just even your regular frequencies that are in your house, can cause. My concern is if you can have some reactions to the frequencies that are in the wiring of your house and the Wi-Fi, these data centers are much, much more powerful. What impact will they have on our health? And this isn't just for those that have had certain diseases like Lyme disease or been exposed to high levels of mold. It affects everybody. They talk about how these frequencies can affect our cells in that it can change the electrons, especially on calcium, and open up the cell to calcium and can flood into the cell. It can cause your red blood cells to lose an electron, and they start sticking together, and when they start sticking together, they form long ropey chains called relay, and they can't get through your capillaries very easily, and you get sludgy blood, which causes all kinds of problems. Also, there can even be some other environmental things that we've not even considered or thought about. And the American Academy of Environmental Medicine does have some studies to talk about what I just mentioned. But there's also a study talking about how these electromagnetic frequencies interact with mold. It causes mold to send 500 times more mycotoxins out, spew. So mold spreads 500 times more. Will the houses become more moldy? What about the health of people exposed to that mold in the house? So there's a lot of unintended or unknown consequences that could be happening, and I just encourage everyone to maybe look into some of these things and realize that, you know, there needs to be more information gathered, maybe more studies done to see what the total health effects and environmental effects may be.
Thank you. Mr. Thea.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. I appreciate it. It's been a long, long evening on this, so don't get up. I got a couple of points, one of which is a question from my wife. We're consistently heard that you can't remove by right in the TOD because it's down zoning. We've heard this prior to the TOD being passed, and we hear it now. How is it that you can't remove by right just for data centers in the TOD, but you can downzone all other M1, M2s in the county by banning data centers in the rest of the county? And I think there are some other counties to the north of us that have addressed this situation, even after the fact data centers have been installed. Second thing, on your slide, just a comment, and it was brought up a couple of times with developments and things, 2018. 50 years, you had a slide as it talked about 50 years in the planning. And then West Creek was developed. You gotta remember, half of those 25 years was supported by residential planning, development, these people here, and me as included. So half of those 50 years, the money and the support 65% of the revenue from the county is generated in 2 districts. And those 2 districts are 4 and 5. And you want to concentrate all the data centers in that one district, which is technically District 5, to alienate for the 25 years that these folks have supported Goochland and the support to help fund a lot of the activities. And then one question that I brought up last night with a group of folks and I want to understand how this is. And I know you presented it a few months ago. There's a lot of things on your plate from a county, infrastructure, firehouses, schools, everything that needs to be paid for. What is that dollar figure? And then with all the promises that every Tom, Dick, and Harry data center developer end user has promised that they will generate revenue, how much or how many data centers does it take to reach your goal? Is it 15? Or is it 1 or 2 in West Creek? Not in the TOD West, because I agree with everything everybody else has said. It needs to be removed. But is it 1? And we know Eli Lilly is going to have a data center. I mean, if they don't have a data center, I'd be surprised, because that's what their data, it's medical research. So they're going to have a data center. So we got 1 there. Is that something that can generate enough revenue for the county to satisfy the needs of what we want to do? That's it. So I just try to figure out that balance, because I don't think 15 data centers in a concentrated area is the best decision-making process for smart growth and development. So, thank you.
Thank you, Wes, for bringing this forward. Do want to answer his question the best that I can. If the board were to move forward with the first goal as proposed, that would be a downzoning of current M1 and M2 properties, which, every decision that's made on this topic and others, there are pros and cons and risks and rewards in every decision that's made, and we certainly have heard much about that this evening. So if there would be a downzoning of any M1 property, regardless of where it is, there certainly is something that the board would have to consider, because that would be a removal of property rights for those individuals who currently have that zoning. And so that's all part of the calculus and all part of the consideration that would need to be taken into account. As far as revenue goes, it's really hard to determine how much revenue is going to come, because there are so many projections that we're currently analyzing. Many have asked us, hey, take a look at TRAC's revenue projections. We don't think it's accurate. And we are working with a third party to evaluate their revenue projections. It all depends on the kind of machinery that they have and the value of the land and the size, and all those kind of things certainly influence the true value of that, which ultimately impacts revenue. Currently, we have several projects that are in consideration for the county, including a new Fire Station 7, $30 million of renovations to this building to focus on career and technical education, $56 million courthouse, and other projects that have been discussed publicly, including a potential renovation of the old Goochland Elementary School. So many projects have been discussed publicly, and in the short term, those projects total $114 million. And the 25-year CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, is in excess of $200 million. So regardless of any sort of decisions that are made, we as a community need to decide what is important to us as far as the facilities that we want, and ultimately how we choose to pay for those. So that's a dilemma that we will all have to work through together. Anyway, Wes, I hope that answers your question. Somewhat? Okay. Well, maybe we can catch up later. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Gail, and I really wasn't intending to speak tonight, but you said something tonight that got me thinking. Actually, it made me kind of sad. You said I did not come here to fight with anybody. And it got me thinking, besides the fact that we do it, is there anyone in the administration that is fighting for us? Or are we out here all by ourselves, just flapping our jaws, and it's going in one ear and out the other? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, at the end of the day, all of us, all 300 employees, serve 28,000 residents in this community. And so that's our job, that's our calling, that's why we choose to serve. So yes, we are in the service profession, and we are serving all of you, regardless of backgrounds, experiences, and where you live, and doing that under the governance structure that we currently have. So I oftentimes have conversations with my teammates, and we talk about our role and, you know, the things that were referenced. So we do take our jobs very seriously. We take great pride in being servants in this community and proud of the service that we're able to provide. So here's our last comment for tonight.
Doctor, do you have time for one more?
One more, that's it.
Okay, I'll wrap it up for you. You have to have the one, okay? You have to have the one. The famous philosopher Morgan Wallen said, I am the problem. I am in favor of the data center. I have been for a long time. I think you're doing an excellent job. I studied this data center thing at SMU back in the early 90s. This technology center was a buffer. It was a buffer to stop urban sprawl. I was in my MBA class. There's a basic fact, a rule across the United States. No bedroom community can survive on a bedroom community. You have to have commerce or industry. You have to have something else. We cannot survive. In Goochland here, you've done an excellent job. The Planning Commission has done, since the 80s, we could have been like Northern Virginia. We are north and west of Richmond. All cities in the United States expand urban sprawl to the north and the west. There is no exceptions, except unless there's a mountain or a river, but they always expand. We were right in that path, having that buffer, we call it data centers, technology zone. That buffer was envisioned as something to stop it from happening. It's done a pretty darn good job. Stopped up this, but at some point in time, it was going to become a data center. Okay. Are you familiar with Monroe Township? What happened there last week?
No, sir.
Okay. It's like Wile E. Coyote running off a cliff. It's not a good situation. In Monroe Township, they turned down. They got the supervisors there. I think they call them councilmen. To turn down. I'm very familiar. I'm doing business in that town. To turn down a data center. Wonderful. They turned it down. 3 days later, a $300 million lawsuit got dropped based on capricious and arbitrary rationale. My attorney, my land developers, it's going to bankrupt the friggin' town. It's going to wipe them out. That is only about 100 acres data center. Here we have 900 acres in this data center. The value of that data center we have here is over $1 billion, land value. It's not hard to do the math. It's almost $1 million an acre with what we're talking about. And what's going to come down is you're going to have the opportunity, if this gets turned down, and that's my question is, are you going to stay with the land use process and the land use laws of Virginia and ignore capricious and arbitrary comments? I love them. I love what you said. You used excellent words. You got to be legal because you watched everything you said. So my compliments on that. But when we're all running forward in a momentum, and we're going to push ourselves as a county, possibly, I can't see any reason why track would not, if we turned it down, immediately. For $1 billion, they're going to have the best attorneys ever, and they're going to hit us. We can't afford a $1 billion lawsuit here. We'll end up with a lot of legal costs. We'll end up with data centers. We'll probably end up with a football field there. We'll end up with everything we don't want. But if we follow, and the basic rule as, you know, as a developer, if the town follows the land use process, the land use law, and you follow it, you are following it rigorously. A lot of people here tonight, I listen carefully, they don't like it because they want you to have a vote. A vote is capricious and arbitrary, just by definition. So that would actually land us into the, we would vote it down, then it would just land us in the same spot. But if we follow the land use law rigorously, we may have a good chance. Because TRAC may say, hey, this is not a good place. I'd like to do oil and gas development here. This is not a good place to do oil and gas development. I can't imagine coming into front of an audience like this and saying, hey, we're going to make you rich. And they would be like, you know, very negative. The audience here is very negative, Goochland. But I love Goochland. I love the neighbors. I love everywhere. I go out to the Y, hang out at the pool. It's nice. But I'm asking you, are you going to follow the land use process of Virginia rigorously so we don't get a capricious and arbitrary?
Yeah, I think what I talked about tonight was a process that's outlined in our county code, which starts with tonight, which is the first community meeting when a pre-application is submitted. And so the next step is a public meeting taking place on Tuesday, and potential future meetings for the Planning Commission and other community meetings as well. So I put this slide back up for anybody that's watching and here tonight. This is the dedicated project website. This is where you can send emails regarding this project. I encourage you to stay tuned. This is where we'll provide updates every step of the way. Thank you all for coming.